Taking a photo. Don't see a button here.
You'll figure it out.
I got that much longer.
Jeez.
All right.
Nobody go on stage. I got you, seats.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
Yeah, I bet my 3 days is not that much. Yeah. There you go. See them?
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Do we have a slide signal?
All right. So let's start. I promised that Network Manager didn't break. It wasn't the problem of Network Manager. It was something else. All right. So hello, everyone. My name is Fernando. I'm a senior software engineer at Red Hat. I work in the networking services team, mainly on network management. And so today, my idea of this talk is to show you a little bit what is the present and the present state and our future strategy for network management in enterprise Linux. Also, I would like a little bit that you could participate, because I love to hear community complaints, especially community complaints about the software that I do. So please, if at some moment you have any question, you have your network manager crash or something like that, please raise your hand and we can discuss it. All right, so this is the agenda and yeah, all the stuff. Long ago, when I was a kid, before 2004, network manager didn't exist. And what we had is basically if config, if network scripts, and basically you needed to create a bunch of bash scripts everywhere. And I know this because when I started learning networking and how to use Linux, etc., I say, I want to be a pro, so I'm not going to use Network Manager. Okay, don't do that, right? I end up with a single laptop, like around 10 bash scripts that after 1 month, I was not able to understand. I mean, I wrote them, but it was too complex. And every time I go to a different place or in a different situation where I needed something special, it was a real mess to configure my networking. Okay, but that was the past. Then some people say we should do something, and they created Network Manager. And Network Manager came to stay. So basically, there are two reasons why they created Network Manager. Enterprise Linux users were asking for modern solutions. They were asking for a tool that could deploy in their systems and then share configuration files, and then everything would work. Or even they could detect in which network they are connecting, and then they could connect automatically to that network. And then also, it's the year of Linux desktop, yet again. And people in laptops or the desktop, they do not want to use bash scripts to configure their networking. They just want to plug their cable and have internet connection. And I understand that. So they created a Network Manager that was around 18 years ago. So please, when you complain about Network Manager, have in mind that some parts of the code is probably 18 years old. All right, so the principles of Network Manager. I think I have been reading, during this talk, some documentation, and I noticed that there are basically two things that we repeat all the time in the documentation, is that our focus is make networking configuration and setup painless and automatic as possible. And then also to allow customized and high level of manual network control if the user desires that. And as you can notice, this is a little bit contradictory because in one point we say you don't need to do anything, and in the other hand we say you need to do everything, but it's only optional. So this way, promoting this, we can allow the users that do not want to deal with the network configuration to just plug the cable and have internet connection. But in the other hand, for the network engineers, they allow them to configure their complex stuff and to customize their environment. In the end, we can say that it's just networking that just works, but sometimes it doesn't. We are going to go for that later. Okay, now is 2023, and cloud. Cloud is everywhere. Everyone is using cloud. You have OpenStack, you have OpenShift, you have container, virtual machines, container over virtual machines over containers over containers, virtual machines over virtual machines. But the most important thing here is that you have networking everywhere. You have networking to communicate the virtual machines, the containers inside the virtual machines, etc. So we need to adapt Network Manager to that situation because people is used to Network Manager and they start using, OpenStack, OpenShift, and they want to continue using the same tool that they did on their distribution. So we need to adapt some things. Basically, also, we have, everybody knows about public cloud providers, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, I think Alibaba also. There are plenty of them. And we have also some tools to configure Network Manager there. So this is our future. The future is that we are going to continue working in Network Manager, focusing on cloud, because all the enterprise networking is now on cloud, and we cannot stay behind that. So what efforts are we doing? In first place, we have an nCloud setup. An nCloud setup, it's a tool that automatically configure the network of the VMs in public cloud. Basically, if you launch this, you have a VM in Amazon Web Service, for example, I don't know, an EC2 instance, you can run this this script, and then you will get all the interfaces connected with the IPs and everything that's needed to work. That's really useful for people that needs a quick setup. Obviously, if you are doing something special, probably you need to do some customization later. Then we are reducing the gaps between EF, CFG, and network manager. We know that a lot of people is still using ifconfig and network scripts and all of that, and we would like them little by little to come to network manager. So we are trying to reduce the gaps between ifconfig and between EF, CFG, and network manager, so they can have all the features they need in network manager also. And then we also are doing efforts on NM state, Kubernetes NM state, and NM policy. I'm going to talk in more detail later about them. But in general, they are tools focused on cloud and cluster environments. Right, so recently we introduced some features that I consider that they are quite great, and they are quite related to cloud environments. We, for example, support global DNS configuration, and this is something really useful for OpenShift people. This is why we did it, because they were asking for it. Also, the IPv4 ECMP support for routes, it's quite useful there too. We have been extending OBS and OBS DPDK support because in OpenStack, almost everything is software-defined network, and they use OBS and OBN everywhere. So this was basically a must, and the users of OpenStack that they want to integrate Network Manager were asking for this. And then we are also introducing new things like multipath TCP or MPTCP. So MPTCP, it's quite recent in the kernel in the stable way, and probably is going to be used more and more in the future. And this is not strictly related to cloud, but probably the people that are going to set up services with support with MPTCP, they are going to do it in cloud environments. So it's nice to have it there because they could do it using Network Manager. Right, so we continue with our efforts, and then we create NM state. So NM state is a library with a command line tool that manages host networking in a declarative manner. So that means when you are working with NM state, you don't need to specify what do you want to do or how do you want to do it. Sorry, you need to specify how do you want to do it. You need to specify what. So you describe a state, apply it, and NM state will do all the work. So NM state communicates with Network Manager. In the end, what NM state does is generate a key file for Network Manager and apply it to the system using the checkpoints, using the rollbacks, and other Network Manager features. And in order, so the idea is that the user does not need to understand the internals of Network Manager, and also the user does not need to understand the interdependencies between the interfaces. So when you configure interfaces, there are some interdependencies like the DNS routes. If it is a link aggregation interface like a bonding, you need to configure the ports, etc., etc. So this is done automatically by NM state, which is quite great because people in cloud need to deploy in large environments, and they need something that is declarative, and a tool is going to do all the work. They shouldn't resolve all the dependency and interdependencies of the networking interfaces for each cluster. That is almost impossible for a system administrator that is working in a big environment. So just to say, also, NM state is written in Rust. So, and we created C bindings. And with the C bindings, we have Python and Golang bindings. So that boosts our adoption because Kubernetes people were able to basically use our API directly in Golang. And that was a very big benefit for them. Right, we also have Linux Network System role, which is an Ansible role that enables users to configure their network on the target machines. And it uses Network Manager. And recently, we introduced NM state and using the NM state schema and API. So now they can basically, if they are used to NM state, they can copy their state, they can copy their API, and use it on the Ansible role if they need to deploy it with Ansible, which is a great benefit. Also, it's a great benefit because when we develop something in NM state, network role is immediately getting that feature. And that's quite good because I don't need to, well, we don't need to do double work, and we don't need to double test it, etc., etc. Okay, then we have NM policy. NM policy is an expression-driven declarative API for dynamic network configuration. That sounds weird. Yeah, but the idea here is that we found out that there were some cases in which we couldn't use pure declarative states. For example, if you have a big cluster and you want to configure an interface depending on the state of another interface, that is not possible with a static API. A static API. So what they did here is basically they built in top of NM state another tool that they get as an input a desired state of NM state, and then they get a policy specification. So with these two things, they can build a different network state for another cluster. And this way, they mainly use this in OpenShift. They can configure dynamic networking with NM state, but using NM policy. This is mainly focused on cluster, because if you are configuring a VM or your own laptop with NM state, probably is enough. But if you are in big clusters, this is really useful. And also, this is getting into Fedora Core S. Yeah, and the sysadmins are not happy, so they don't end up on this situation. But yeah, no, that's not the reality. We have some problems, and we need to solve them. So first of all, sometimes there are problems. Network Manager is not a perfect software, neither NM state or network role or NM policy. And sometimes there are bugs, and sometimes your driver is not compatible, etc., etc., etc. So they need to debug it. And we have a problem is that the logs of Network Manager are quite hard to debug. I'm not sure if someone have ever tried to solve a problem and needed to do journalctl Network Manager, and then found out a big log with a lot of information that is really hard to debug. And we are working on ideas to solve this problem. We are working on possible solutions. We have some internal scripts that, for example, colorize the logs, and they are a little bit better, but we need a better solution, and we are working on that. Then people ask questions, and we reply them, but we didn't have a frequent questions section in our webpage, and we should, because I have been working in this team for almost 3.5 years, and I had questions when I started. Then I noticed that other people had the same questions, and I replied to them. And then day-to-day, I'm getting the same questions, and I need to reply them, but then they get lost in the middle of mailing list. So I think we should create some knowledge base in our webpage with frequent questions and the solution. So probably that is going to help a lot the users. And then we have another problem. It's when we support something, we support it forever or for a long time. So I know that everyone has their own special case, and it's a valid case, but we cannot support everything forever because it requires a great effort on developer side, a great effort on QE side, a great effort on documentation side. So we cannot do everything. And we need to design a third-party network manager plugin system. We have already one, but it's not good at all. And we should create one system that could allow some developer to create their own plugin, and then they have their own third-party network manager plugin. It will integrate with network manager, and they can do all the they can they can complete the special case, or they can solve their special problem. So yeah, so that's all. I would like to hear your opinion a little bit, if possible, or your opinion on Network Manager and the current networking status, or if you have any question. Thank you.
Any questions? Give me one moment. Close the live stream and I have to. Uh-huh.
Sorry?
Oh,
It's no. The problem
can
is
you
that we
repeat
do
the
not have
question so that it's, yeah, or I can handle this for
it.
you.
Yeah. And
Just,
so the problem is that we do not have this frequent question page, and basically we do not have it because we didn't do it.
Because why?
Why? But
Why did you do this?
right. So then you are working a bug, you are coding, and then you get a question from someone, you reply to the email, and forget about it. You don't think, this is a frequent question, I should put it on this place. We should do that. I mean, this is we did our job bad in that situation. We should have done it, because I think especially it could help to non-technical users, because we noticed that there are a lot of non-technical Network Manager users, basically other people that use Network Manager with their Linux distribution, and they just plug their cable and it works. And sometimes they have problem and they are not able to debug it. So probably this kind of page could help a lot. And we have a work in progress to have it. So we are going to have it soon. I hope so.
Michelle online asks, can this be used with systemd network D?
Sorry?
Can this be used with systemd network D?
I mean, I'm not familiar with systemd network D. So Network Manager, not sure if they have conflicts, but I don't know. I mean, usually when you have a system that is configuring networking, it's better to only have one system, because then you have two systems touching the interfaces and the configuration all the time, and probably something is going to go wrong.
Any more questions?
In the past, there was just some pre-config list of for mobile connections, but it's not anymore. I didn't read about that. I mean, maybe it's in the docs or somewhere in some forum. But you know why? What's the reason? Because now we have to go directly to check in our provider the APN name and all this data, which is also sometimes.
No, that's a great concern. So we can follow up later, because I think that is going to be an extensive discussion. But yeah, I think, I don't know why. I mean, there should be a reason, and they should be in the docs or in the news file. And if not, it's a bug. So, and it shouldn't. Yeah, we can talk about that later. Thank you.
Is there any plan to include more VPN technologies within the configuration for Network Manager? Like WireGuard, I know that there used to be a separate plugin for OpenVPN, for example.
Sorry?
There is already one for WireGuard now?
Oh, okay.
Oh, I agree. Oh, I thought there is, and I don't know about those. Oh my God.
So I don't know if there are plans. I don't think so that there are plans currently. But this is what they said. If it is a great idea, community like it, we see value on the idea, we can promote it and maybe do it. We can study the idea. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, but I think there is one more question.
So you talked about NM state and NM policy, and during those descriptions of those things, To me, it kind of sounded like you duplicated what the network manager base configuration format does, just put it in one file rather than three. Any thoughts of maybe instead of another thing that does a thing that wraps on top of a thing, maybe make the thing itself actually do the thing you want? Like, it'd be nice to have a simplified configuration format in network manager itself that everything could work with, rather than making things on top of it, because this
Yes.
is like the sixth one of those that I know of.
Yes. This is basically a situation in which you see a standard and you say, I could do better. And then there is one more standard to the other 100 that already exist. Right, that's correct. But our initial idea was that we wanted to do with NMState the final tool that unify everything.
It's
and then,
static.
Sorry?
The final thing is static, though, not dynamic.
Right, but then we didn't consider the dynamic situation for V clusters, and that is how we end up. But I think there are good things for the NM state and NM policy being built in top of network manager. It's basically they can use each other, and yes, everything could be in the same repository. Then you end up with systemd, something like the systemd or big as systemd. It's hard. I think the benefits of having them independently is that, for example, the development, it's completely different. I mean, the people that is developing NM policy are not the same that are developing NM state, and they are not the same that are developing network manager. And they collaborate between them, and they get all the context. But they are written in different languages. They have different scopes. One of them try to aim for clusters and is focused on cluster and ignore the other things. I mean, one could say that NM state could be integrated in network manager, but then there are some people that they have containers and they have the services split between containers, and probably they would like to run the NM state service in another container and not on network manager container. I mean, there are a lot of situations. When you start working with enterprise networking, you end up discovering quite weird situations that you need to support. And this is how that was the resolution.
You frighten me.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Have you considered using ChatGPT to help you write the FAQ?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Have you considered using ChatGPT to help you write the frequently asked questions? Just by asking it to see if it's read the mailing list or not.
We didn't consider it.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah. It could be interesting, but when it started, I tried to say ChatGPT configure an Ethernet interface with NM state, and the result was quite bad. It was like nmstate.configure Ethernet, and this doesn't even exist. I mean, NM state use YAML states. Why is this generating a command line command? And when you ask something for network manager, it doesn't work at all. Maybe in the future, if it is smart.
You have to train it.
Yeah, of course, we could with all our internal emails. And then maybe we end up with a CVE in our question webpage. No, I think we do not consider it yet, but who knows, maybe in the future.
Actually, it worked pretty well with bridging the Wi-Fi to Ethernet for VChat.
Really? Okay, that's great.
For an MCLI.
Okay, that's great. Okay, maybe we should consider it. All right.
Okay, great. Oh, sorry. Not trying to cut you off, but I'm going to cut you off. So,
Yeah.
all right, thanks again.
Thank you.
And next up, Neil Hanlon's going to be talking to us about Rocky Linux. And is it Peridot or Peridot? Awesome, just like CentOS. Yes.
So we're finding out that the dinner.
I don't want the developer console. There we go. Now I just need to turn off notifications so Sharif can't message me. Or just like close the apps. I guess that would work. Are we good, John? Cool, cool. Hello, I'm Neil Hanlon. I'm going to talk about Rocky Linux a little bit and Peridot. So I am one of the co-founders of Rocky Linux, and by that I mean I was in a Slack channel at the right time with the right people. And now I found myself rebuilding Red Hat Enterprise Linux for fun and profit. Not really. So I work at CIQ on the Enterprise Linux team and kind of engage open source and help run our engagements with open source folks, and that includes developing Peridot. So I will promise I get to what Peridot is soon, but I first want to talk about kind of how we got here and why we're building Peridot. So to answer this, we need a little bit of background information. As I said, I, as well as a bunch of us, were just in the right place at the right time and found ourselves now to be rebuilding Red Hat into Rocky Linux. And almost all of us had never really touched Koji before. We'd never, we heard about modularity because we were using it, but didn't really have that much of an idea of how module build system or MBS worked and how to invoke those builds, how to compose Fedora releases, how to compose Red Hat releases, all of these sorts of things. We had no idea about. So along with a lot of help from people like Pablo Greco and the Fedora SOPs for sure, those pages are wealths of information. We figured out how to build 8. And we've built Rocky 8 with Koji and MBS and all of the Fedora toolchain stuff. It took us a good amount of time, but we figured it out in the end. And to ease some of the pain of the domain-specific knowledge that's required to run some of these tools, in particular with MBS and launching these builds, we developed a thing called distro build. And this was to help ease the pain of distributing that wealth of knowledge for all of these different tools into a centralized place that would allow any of our developers to import and build and patch any of those tools or any of the packages as we needed it. So this is distro build. It's kind of our first step towards automating our Fedora tooling in our specific ways, because we are essentially taking packages that have been built most of the time, almost 100% of the time, and patching them so that they build for us. And most of the time they just build for us because they're just packages that build. We do need to do some debranding of packages so that they don't say Red Hat Enterprise Linux and we don't infringe on trademarks. And there are some other patches that we do occasionally or have to do occasionally to get patches to build, or get packages to build rather. That's much less so now than it was when we first started building Rocky, but it's still something we have to do occasionally. So distro build is a portal that we can go and log into. We can launch imports, we can build packages, and this just triggers remote API calls to Koji, to MBS, which and then invokes calls to Koji. But this is really how we're building 8 today, and how we managed to build not only 8, but also a look-ahead version of 8 that tracks essentially CentOS Stream. So we're rebuilding all of the packages in CentOS Stream as they come in as well, and we're able to automate that with distro build. It works really well, and obviously we're using it today to build 8, but there were some limitations in it with how we were invoking those builds, and it was kind of just like a patchwork of code that we were putting all together to get these things to work. And we essentially decided that there were about 2 ways that we could go about it. We could either like fork and start doing something different, and essentially that's what we did, or we could contribute back upstream, and that's not something that we're not doing. Let me be clear about that. But we wanted a system that we had better control over, essentially. I talked a little bit about importing and patching, and I wanted to go into that a little bit because this is something that was supported in distro build as well as the future with Peridot. This is a tool called, or we wrote a tool called SRPM proc to help automate and standardize the patching procedure for all of the packages. So what SRPM proc does, and this is an example for Python 3 right now, this adds a patch file from Git into the SRPM, modifies the patch to add that to the prep section, changes the release field there, and also adds an entry to the change log. And so with that configuration, when we run SRPM proc against the Python 3 package, for example, what it does is it fetches all of those sources from git.centos.org or GitLab for CentOS 9 Stream. It downloads the appropriate sources from the appropriate look-aside caches and uploads them to the Rocky Linux look-aside. And finally, it fetches that patch repo there, applies any of the patches, and builds the SRPM into a dist-git format, and then pushes that back and tags the results back into our Git. From there, we can then use those built results or built imports to launch builds on any architectures that we want to. And that's exactly what Peridot does. So we're using the same kind of format here with SRPM proc, but with a different build system that helps us automate the whole process a little bit more. So kind of to wrap up the whys, we really wanted to better understand and control how the build system worked, especially with integration into a lot of the systems that we chose to use. So we're using like Mattermost for our chat. We really wanted to have the ability to integrate into their playbooks there for our release procedures and use the tooling that they have around transparency and communication within a release process. We wanted it to be easier to set up and run at home. Koji and MBS are not the most friendly things to run at home, and not that anyone should probably be running those at home, but we wanted a solution that would enable a sysadmin to run this not only on their laptops, but at work, and be able to produce packages for their works in a convenient and repeatable manner. NFS was a big pain point for us running in the cloud almost exclusively and needing to distribute builds across multiple clouds. Koji has some remote methodology as well to fetch artifacts, but it's a lot easier if you just have everything on a single NFS share. So the new system that we had, we decided we didn't want it to rely on any sort of network file storage. Lastly, we wanted to add some other things that we were particularly concerned about in terms of role-based access control for builds, build profiles for different packages so that we can schedule them on the properly sized builders, as well as software lifecycles, security architecture type stuff. So Peridot is our attempt to make rebuilding Red Hat Enterprise Linux something that anyone can do, to our goals of outlasting the people in the Rocky project. So with that said, we're going to talk about Peridot. It is, in a full buzzword sentence, a cloud-native build system that you can run on a Kubernetes cluster. We use temporal.io for deterministic workflows and being able to schedule all of the import, build, create repo jobs, all of the different sections of the modular system essentially that we've built allow us to schedule those jobs across wherever they need to go, including external Kubernetes clusters that we run for external architectures like S390X and PowerPC. It uses the same build and import workflow as distro build, so it uses SRPM proc to process out those changes from git.centos.org and put them into the git.rockylinux.org. And the build workflow is essentially just a different API call, and we have a new UI to undergo that. So this is showing the build of Thunderbird for Rocky Linux 9.1 that just happened recently. And all of these individual subtasks kind of get executed on a single build of Rocky Linux. There is a UI overhaul underway. These lovely timestamps are not localized at all, so they're just basically from when they started, and it makes it hard to interpret logs occasionally. So we're looking to add a lot of more details and Koji hub-like information like logs and being able to have direct links to download RPMs and those sorts of things. We have that exposed in the API and via command line tools, but it's not really in the UI right now. Along with that is errata, which is something we've introduced at the beginning of Rocky 8 and have just recently, in the past couple of days, added the information in for Rocky 9. We completely rewrote our errata parser that queries Red Hat and queries our database of packages and our repositories. So we cut down a time from like 24 plus hours to a matter of minutes to process and release updates. So this is our errata information. We include this as an open API that anyone can access. And we're going to have some blog posts about using that API in the next couple of months as well. And of course, Peridot is still using Fedora tools. We're still using mock. We use RPM build. We use all of the standard things you're used to for building the packages themselves. It's just the orchestration of the package builds that are a little bit different. Of course, we also use other tools, like we're still using Punji for composing the releases, and we use Image Factory and Oz to create our virtual image machines as well, or virtual machine images as well. It of course supports dark mode, because why wouldn't it? And next I want to talk about a little bit of what it looks like to use. In comparison to distro build, Peridot has a declarative syntax that allows us to set up the projects in any form. So the first thing you need to do when you're setting up a Peridot project is configure all of the packages that are inside that project and what repositories they go into. We have a script that parses the upstream data for what packages need to be in certain repositories, base OS, AppStream, etc. And we write a catalog file that looks similar to this with the package names, the repositories, all the NRAs, I guess, just name and architectures that should be in those repositories. And we can add some additional metadata as well, but essentially everything in the project gets configured here. Packages can be different types depending on what exactly they are. So a normal source package would be kind of just a dist-git package that is looking for, it's not trying to do an import from an upstream, so it's just treating it as an original package, as if it were just stored in Git, which it is. That's compared to or in difference to a fork type package, a normal fork type package, which would instruct Peridot to go and automatically do that import from git.centos.org or wherever it needs to be and store it in our Git. So we have this outer catalog, as I was saying, that generates all of our package names, and those will be all of the RHEL packages. We have our own packages that we introduce for overrides, like the Rocky release packages, Rocky repos, and we also have other packages that may be in extras or alternatives SIG repos. The other thing we do, or this process enables us to do, is determine what packages don't belong in any repos and take those packages and then put them into a single repo. So you may be familiar with CentOS's old adage of no package left behind. That's what we're attempting to do here with the Rocky stuff, is put all of the non-packaged or non-repositoried packages into a repository so they can be accessed. The other thing you can do is configure essentially any aspect of the project. In here, we're modifying or overriding the SRPM root packages that will be executed in the stage that we're building the SRPM. So this just overrides a set of packages to be installed there. And we also have the ability to store package dependencies or relationships in our database, which allows us to implement essentially software collections. So that's what this does for Rocky 9, is an implementation of the GCC toolset 12 software collection, simply by adding a dependency on these package globs to these different package names. The neat thing about this is that all these catalogs are synchronized and we can snapshot to them, so then we can compare what's different between the snapshots, roll back to them, etc. The other thing that does that I didn't mention is we can enable and disable modules. There's a lot of interfaces that we can also add into there that we haven't yet, because again, UI and coding stuff is immensely challenging to get done in a reasonable amount of time. So how is Rocky using it? Besides Rocky 9, there are several ongoing efforts from our contributors. There's a cloud SIG that is currently delivering optimizations and tools for mostly Google Cloud right now. There are some GVNIC drivers that are in the mainline Linux kernel that haven't yet been backported down into RHEL or haven't been released yet. I think I was tracking them and they have been backported. And so this is a kernel build on top of those GVNIC drivers that enables better performance on Google's GCP's performance or Pro network, whatever they're calling it these days. Additionally, we have an OS tree SIG that's similar to the CentOS stream OS tree stuff that I was watching this morning. And that's something we're hoping to get to releasing out of Peridot, as well as essentially a native build type after our releases happen, just releasing an OS tree compose as well. And just quickly, we have an optimized SIG that's trying to test out various micro architecture optimizations, like targeting x86 v3 on Rocky, yeah. And then we also have an alt-arch SIG that builds our Raspberry Pi packages, kernel, and we're looking to also add alt-arches in for that as well. So there's some interest in ARM7 VL or 32-bit ARM for Raspberry Pis, and that is something that we are actively working in Peridot to support. We just have to modify the build methodology a little bit because it's not super easy to launch 32-bit containers on ARM. So contributing back, Peridot is a method, or what Peridot has enabled us to do above and beyond building the packages and releasing Red Hat or Rocky for Linux as a downstream rebuild is hopefully contribute back to that ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, we found a lot of bugs when we were first rebuilding Rocky, but they were not very high quality bugs. They were bugs that had already been fixed, and we were encountering them because we were trying to build Perl from 2019 in 2021, and it had some expired certs or any sort of class of problems that weren't very useful to report upstream. We're now getting to a point where the bugs we're encountering while building, if they're not unique to us, we are able to reliably report them without having to spend a whole lot of effort determining if they've already been patched, where they've been patched, figuring out where we're wrong. In addition, we are building this look-ahead variant of Rocky, which is functionally, it can be thought of as a stream kind of version of Rocky, and that will allow us to build packages as they come in from CentOS stream, and not only test them and do validation on them, which will improve the overall ecosystem, but also help Rocky release faster by already having those packages built. How can I use it? I know at many jobs I've had to rebuild RPMs for God knows what purpose. A patch that someone wanted, a bug that someone relied on. Who really knows? That was a serious pain point for me in the past, and something my personal intentions for Peridot is to make that easier for any sysadmin to maintain and manage those in a more repeatable way. Peridot and SRPM proc make it a lot simpler to not have to rebase your patches all the time. We also have another tool called Sideline that helps to backport patches from various trees and apply them on top. You can also use it to manage your custom dependencies for your project. It is essentially, it can be thought of as a Fedora copper in a way, with a lot less user interface to manage everything. But it is for an enterprise to set up and deploy, and especially if you're trying to run this across multiple sites, for example, running it in Kubernetes and having those repositories distributed across all of your sites using, we use S3 right now for Amazon, but you could use any backing store that supports an S3 API. So you can use those features as well for a lot of different reliability concerns and scaling these, because Peridot also serves repositories directly out of it. So you don't have to sync them or do anything out of there. It maintains those state and deploys those or serves up those repositories on demand. We also have API integration so that this can be launched from CI. I'm using that today to update and build packages as changes come in. So on merge or whatever, we can execute the commands to go and import those packages, build the packages, etc. And then quickly, I want to touch on what's next for Peridot. So the onboarding for Peridot and getting it set up on your system is bad right now. It runs in Kubernetes, which means it is a pain. And while our initial intentions, and we have some branches that are single command setups, it's a lot of services to set up all at once. And we've been doing a lot of thinking the past month and a half, 2 months on how we can improve that user experience to make it so that anyone can download it and install it on a Kubernetes cluster that they have hopefully set up, but without a whole lot of caveats about exactly what you need to have. You don't need it to be Docker desktop running on Mac on ARM and all of these sorts of other things. So really making that development environment a little bit more generic for users. In addition, for builders like 32-bit ARM and for just general scalability purposes, we're going to be adding support for non-Kubernetes builders. Right now, everything gets launched in a Kubernetes pod, which works really well for scheduling purposes, but it also kind of sucks because you're limited to the scheduling of those Kubernetes pods, and also we've encountered a lot of weird bugs with running these builds in containers in particular, or Kubernetes pods in particular, that we don't see when running locally. So that's another reason for this. Errata administration portal for managing updates, that's actually should be released almost now. We'll have the ability to tie any missing updates or potentially invalid updates, and as well as report those to upstream. But this tool is helping us catch those and release those back into the Rocky Linux errata information interface. Most of this is really just around improving the management interface. So we want to add a better interface to manage the any VRAs in a repository, and integrate our compose toolkit that we have called empanadas directly into Peridot so that it can launch the composes rather than being run independently of the system itself. Lastly, kind of chat ops and webhooks, those are going to be immensely important for us as we look to fully automate our build process by gathering in the MQTT results or feed from Fedora and CentOS and using those to automate the imports and builds. So as far as the 2023 roadmap for Peridot, you can see a lot more build automation and decreasing the time between import, build, and release for Rocky. Any questions?
Yes.
So it seems that you basically rewrote Koji, but everything embedded into one. So Peridot, like there is no MBS equivalent in Peridot. Peridot understand modularity and parse module MD directly, just to submit and initialize build root differently.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So I guess that Peridot understand what a module is, and so is driving a build root completely from the module MD file. to initialize the build root differently, to not rely on something like MBS, which then does everything in Koji, right?
Right. So Peridot, instead of calling external APIs, is launching those builds directly. So we have native module builds that just, it's a different type of package. So in the package config for it, we configure it to be of a module type, and that instructs Peridot to build it as a module. So instead of having an external service that we rely on to coordinate those builds, it's built directly into Peridot.
Hey, do you see Peridot as something that could eventually replace Koji upstream too in Fedora?
I don't think so. And there's been a lot of like, oh, everyone should use it. The upstream should use it. The reality is that Fedora's infrastructure and tooling and everything else is completely wrapped around Koji, and that's not a bad thing. It works really, really well, and everyone knows, or those who need to know exactly how it works. And in that environment, I think it works really well. I think it could be useful for some projects or some pieces, but no, I don't see it being replacing Koji for Fedora.
Is there anything package maintainers in Fedora, CentOS, or Red Hat Enterprise Linux can do to make your life easier?
Or
harder?
Well, if you wanted to make it harder, they could hide all the sources. But I don't see that happening. In terms of making it easier, I think there's a good relationship between the enterprise Linux communities at this point, and we're collaborating in a good way. I know I've been reporting bugs upstream and fixing stuff. We've been having good conversations, I think, about the next steps with like Apple and those sorts of things. So I'm actually really happy that Rocky is now at a point where we're able to contribute back, and I think that's going to help foster a lot of the interactions there.
It is great. Thank you.
Any more?
I have one Rocky Linux related question. Are there plans to build Rocky version of CentOS SIG repos, like cloud OpenStack storage?
So we are distributing those release packages in our, I think they're in the extras repo. So if you enable extras on Rocky, you have access to the CentOS release for the special interest groups. I use those in OpenStack Ansible, or they're used rather in OpenStack Ansible for deploying a lot of those components.
Hi. So you showed the tool SRPM proc that you basically use to help with the downstream patches of Rocky, if I got it right.
Mm-hmm.
So that got my attention because I was thinking, is that tool used for other downstream patches that you know? So are other distributions using that tool? Because I see it very convenient, and it could be convenient for many distros.
Yeah, so there are a couple of distributions that we know of that have like forked it and started doing some stuff with it. They're essentially just, again, downstream of Red Hat, but yeah, they are using SRPM proc, and I think one of them is actually using distribuild as well to build.
If I continue from that point, how do you compare with stuff like Yocto? Because that feature is a base there to be able to pull resources, pull sources, put your own patches, and build.
Sure. I will admit I'm not an expert on Yocto, but the specification that we've developed here, we've kind of just thrown a name at, called Open Patch, and it allows us to do more than just these functions as well. We can do search and replace, swap from look aside, and continually we're adding to that as well to increase the feature set for it. So one of the things I would like to do is add in support for essentially the sideline tool that we have, which backports changes from the Linux kernel on top of the Red Hat kernel for the GVNIC driver. So we're searching for specific symbols and pulling those back down. I'd like to integrate it into that as well, for example, so that we can automate the backporting of some of those patches for the cloud SIG.
Any more questions? Awesome. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
And next, are we ready? Or are we just going off the? Did we get the slides transferred over? Okay.
Who knows? Maybe it will magically work.
I mean, the reasons I don't understand.
It's a Mac. It's an Apple. That's why. You're not using the other.
Like it's sending a signal and that's duplicating it to two places, and somehow it just doesn't work when the signal comes from a Mac.
And that's what happens.
It flashed up here though.
That's all it will do.
It's ready here.
Okay. All right. Probably have to uses this somehow.
That is happening when you're coming to the open source conference with
Of course. See though, yeah. Once you reboot it, then it will work. Or you can just do it in presentation. If you go back.
Back.
Yeah, if you pull that back.
But you want to only have one screen or what? Because
Oh, this isn't. Oh, this is the PDF. Forget it. Forget it. Forget it. Forget it.
Yeah, no, just give to nope.
And I'm assuming just down arrow, right?
Right, left.
Right, left. Perfect. Okay.
Of course. Yep. Right, left.
All right. Thank you so much.
Ready? Okay, next up will be Aaron Williams. Good. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Aaron Williams. I'm the community manager and dev advocate for Ampere. Sorry for the little delay here. I have a Mac at an open source conference that doesn't really work out well apparently. But anyways, so I'm here to talk about what we did is we wanted to kind of have some fun with Mastodon, basically. You know, it's been kind of in the news a little bit. Those of you who, like myself, live in the Bay Area, it's been all over the news for what's going on, namely with their new owner. And the interest has spiked as he's done things, namely, you know, this is per day. So this is how many thousands of new users and new instances have popped up. If you notice, when he completed it, people started talking about it the next couple of days. Suddenly there's a massive spike in Mastodon. Then when they announced the first round of layoffs, massive thing there. And then when he did his Twitter 2.0 hardcore ultimatum, massive spike there. And so that's really, we knew this conference was coming up, and we also wanted to kind of learn about Mastodon, see what was there. You know, in essence, we wanted to get paid to create our own Mastodon instances. So what we did is we started playing with it and you know, really wanted to see how difficult it was to set up you know, your own instance for it. So real simply, for those, I mean, this is a highly technical conference, so I know you guys, a lot of you probably already know most about this, but it's a federated social network. versus Twitter, which is highly centralized. The idea here is that you have a whole bunch of small instances around that all can communicate to each other. And what that really does is it allows you to control what you see a lot more than what you have in the past. And namely, there is not one company that is controlling what you see or trying to get you more involved and more engaged. So putting stuff that will just do that, get you riled up so that way you'll do it. And the biggest thing for us is it was self-hosted. You can do, the self-hosting part of it. And that allows us to, really kind of play with this. And no, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about it. I only have 20 minutes to get going. But what when you start really looking at it, it's just really a couple parts. It's a Ruby on Rails, it has Postgres with a Redis backend, and then a Sidekick component that does the job scheduling, the actual implementations of the jobs. This thing's really messy up here. And Mastodon, because of the way it's set up, really produces an insane amount of jobs. But basically, it is just a simple web application. It's just a tried and true type thing. It's quite amazing that how much of this stuff runs, how well it runs, without needing of streaming, such as like Kafka or Pulsar or Cassandra or MongoDB, anything like that. It's actually pretty simple and works very, very well. Because there hasn't been a lot of written about this, there's some tutorials out there that are just going, this is the best kind of architecture diagram that I've found. And basically, I know this is way too small. Basically, just think this is the input. It goes into the Mastodon Ruby on Rails application. And from there, if there's media files, sends it out to basic file storage. If not, for kind of long-term storage, single source of truth, it goes out into the Postgres, and then for jobs and communicating out to the other instances out there, that's where it uses the Redis and for its in cache and the database for the Sidekick. So once again, while it's probably really small, here I did kind of who put this up. This is Adam Morsky. It's called the Architecture of Mastodon. I also have a degree in history, so therefore I have to cite everything, even though more than that. So that kind of leads us to why Ampere, why Arch64, and why we were doing this. Basically, we are cloud native. And what do we mean by that? And this great overused marketing term is our servers are high performance, scalable, predictable, and energy efficient. Are very energy efficient. So what does that actually mean? Very simply, the high performance, we have very high core counts. Sorry, I have to keep myself here. I want to walk around the stage, but the mic's right here. In addition to that, we have a ton of the L2 cache, to process this stuff really fast. It doesn't do you any good to have a whole bunch of cores if you can't get the information in and out of them really fast. Scalable, we have our main thing is single threaded cores. And what that allows you to do is allows you to scale very, very well. And I'll get to that in just a moment. And there's no noisy neighbor issues. Other systems, x86, uses virtual CPUs. So therefore, you're always kind of limited to who's next door to you. Who are you splitting that core with? And what this leads to is great predictability. It's linear scalable for it. And then, like I said, the better efficiency. And so real quick, just to kind of dive into that, this line here, the one going straight, you can barely see it. There's dotted lines underneath that green one, or dots. That is kind of the ideal scaling. So, you add in another core, just every time you add a core, you get what you would expect versus, if you have virtual CPUs, that goes down over time. The green line matches that very, very closely. And with the single cores, you now have also better security, easier to get things through that, just because you're not sharing cores. And therefore, the better performance and whatnot you get out of this. And this is kind of the systems we're kind of coming up with here. So, but now I really want to talk about the energy efficiency part. This is actually what is insanely important. As servers, I grew up in Silicon Valley. Both my parents were programmers. As I always like to brag, my mom was an assembler programmer, just because I think that is so cool and I could never do that. But both of them were. So I've been here. The reason it came in Silicon Valley at the time was there was space, there was open, and you could throw up solar panels or, more, just lay some wires. It was farmland at the time. And well, that's changed. Data centers now, you can put them out. I mean, Google's proud of putting it out in Iowa, throwing up a bunch of solar panels on top. But this is really kind of, with global climate change and stuff like that, it's really starting to affect things. Like right now, London, there's places in London where they're not going to be building housing until 2035 because that's when they think the infrastructure will catch up to the data centers are there. And so that's why I really want to highlight kind of this part. And so rack density and performance per watt, probably new terms to you, but they intuitively make sense. The more servers that you put onto a rack, that's great, what it was built for. But now with that, how much energy that comes through, you now have to, lay new lines basically just to get it. And even if you did that, then you have the problem of the heat that's coming off of these things. So you just can't do it. And so that limits the amount of space you have. So now you actually literally have to build a new data center. But with the Ampere, AH64 servers, you can put in a lot more servers into each of those racks. And what that means is also the amount of cores go up. And as you can see from the, so that's the rack density can now go back up to what it was, meaning the number of servers you had there. And the other metric is performance per watt. This is just gigaflops or flops or just simply operations per second per amount of wattage used. So anyways, so that's all kind of the background stuff for this, but we also have to rely on high performance, right? Because no one's going to take, a server that's, oh great, it's more efficient, but you can't do anything. And we have a whole bunch of stats on this, but this is just Redis's version of it. The throughput is much better than, x86 stuff that's already out there. And then the performance per watt is, is insane. It's great for this. All right, so what we built. Unfortunately, I'm using somebody else's laptop, so I can't quite show you what we did. We did do 2 Mastodon instances. We used, one is called Hippodon. That one, a Hippodon is an extinct horse from the Americas. So kind of along the time of the Mastodons. And we put it on OCI, so we used Oracle's cloud infrastructure, free tier. So it's the always free tier. So if you go and sign up for this, they won't charge you for it ever. That's what they really do mean by always free. And it has 24 gig of RAM. We are running on my Linux just because we're trying to get the CentOS. It's there, but somehow it's not just activated. So we're working with them to get the CentOS up and running on there. And there's a whole bunch of other community versions of Linux that are there. You can use their standard one, but I doubt anybody here is going to use that. And then the other one we did it on GCP. It's a smaller, at least a little less RAM. Now for Mastodon itself, you probably, if you got your server going up and it was running for a while and you started to build this out, basically if you put like CentOS created their own one, you would want to, have larger space and whatnot because this thing can start sucking up a lot of energy. And just real quick, that's what we did. I wouldn't really, you can join this if you'd like. I won't guarantee that it's going to be up. It is on a free server and it's my personal one. And I don't really want to manage this as much, as little as I have to. And it very well could go down. So That's kind of it. We'll put out a tutorial out there. We have a bunch of links that will actually walk you through how to do it if you're interested in doing this. And it's a great way to kind of learn a little bit more about Mastodon, and what, Ampere servers do. And if you go to, for our developer portal, which is developer.ampere.com. And the thing that we're just kicking off right now is our community page. So if you go to community.ampere.com, you can sign up for that, or, just read the documents. What we're really trying to do here with this is ARM itself has a great developer experience, but 90% of the stuff there deals with Raspberry Pis, which is great. I mean, I have a large collection at my desk and throughout my home, and probably like most of you. But that's where most of it is. It's mostly hobbyists. And so what we're really trying to do is push the AR64 server community. And while, obviously, for Ampere, that's what we want. We want you guys to come in and use our stuff. But really, we're really looking for that thought leadership and stuff around how to move people from x86 onto this AR64, architecture. And it's quite simply because we want that pie to grow. We are basically on just about every public cloud except for one, because they have their own. But then again, the joke would be is, do you really want to go with them? They sell books. I mean, come on. They're kind of a small little company out of Seattle. Anyways, go with all the other ones are using our servers and whatnot. But like I said, our real goal here is to grow the community, grow. You guys are exactly who we would love to have come and talk, kind of show other people how to use this stuff. What are you building? Get native builds now done on AR64 and things like that. So this is a quick little thing. So we have a thing on scaling Mastodon. We've been really trying to talk with a couple of the groups out there that have built these large ones that have grown. And we love that, Mastodon's just a really good example of this, because for most people, if you wanted to create your own one, it's going to be relatively small unless you're a celebrity or you have a inbuilt community around. There's a lot of tech communities out there that have built these things, and they're really growing. And they're having a little bit of issues as they're starting to scale it, because it's been such a big jump in the number of people who are using it. And so here's our portal. Sorry, I would be showing you guys these, but I just wanted to do it. And so that was my citation page. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. And you can ask me stuff about Ampere or things like that too. If you want to deep dive into Mastodon. Yeah.
You say that you want, more people into your ARM platform stuff. Mm-hmm. So when are you going to sell a desktop board to build ARM Linux computers?
We're working on it.
Good.
If you type in, because we're really trying to move into IoT more and more. So therefore, like the Cruise cars from GM are running one of our boxes in there, and that is not an 80 core or 128 core device. We have one out. It's about $4,000. You can go to AdLink and actually purchase it. So you can get it. I know we're working on the price. We're working on that price to get it down. Honest. So we're working.
Give me a $200 board with a socketed ARM CPU.
I don't have one either. I'm sorry.
Yes, upgradable.
Yeah. So it's coming. That's all I can say. And what we're trying to do is put the bare minimum out there. Which for us, I mean, it's also amazing to me because I come from the IoT world. A bare minimum would be like 32 cores, which is massive in my mind, but it's not our 128 core version. So it's coming. We just have to also work with all the drivers and all that stuff and work with the builders. So that way, you don't get a box and then go,
now what? Yeah.
Yeah. What it was like with Linux 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
You great. I have this, but now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Also why I have 40 Raspberry Pis sitting around. it's great. Oh, I can do this project, man. So that's what's happening. Yeah.
I mean, while you're starting to test all that,
It's also
yeah. While you're starting to test all those desktop or future desktop devices, one of the most important things, at least for me, while I'm building a kernel, is just knowing exactly what set of patches are needed on top of the current vanilla, not just one kernel where it works, but you don't know where it came from. So currently for other ARM devices, I'm maintaining a set of patches so that we know it just works. So even for CentOS, if it doesn't work with the stock kernel, but you can use some set of patches on top of vanilla kernels, it's still very useful even if it's not mainline yet. So it's from our side, when we are building, having a clean set of patches on top of something well known is actually useful.
And that's what we're trying. We're expanding. That's what this community part is. So the odd part for me is I've been with Ampere now about 6 months. Is to remember that it's a startup. So a lot of that stuff, we're having to build, or we're getting communities to build with us and for us. So it's there. It's amazing how much you can just do that just works. And we have the very odd, all right, my job is to basically try to get you, if you go to one of the public clouds, that you're going to choose, why, if you're a normal developer, why would you choose? Is that something that's even on your mind? Why would I choose this versus just the standard thing? And more importantly, to probably your DevOps people, everything, they're like, yeah, I mean, I'm an engineer, so therefore I, did all the stuff where I went and, oh yeah, we need this. And, the DevOps guys are like, no. And you're like, well, no, it works. I don't care, right? Because it's different from what I'm doing now. I'm already overworked. And so we have to get to them and get them to accept this. And one of the biggest things is that efficiency, because now they can really start putting more servers into the rooms and not have to worry about laying new cables. I mean, that sounds just networking. No, it's electrical. You have to rebuild the building. You have to put in more power coming in, and then you have to go to your city and all this stuff. And so this is allowing them to do it. So it's there. It's there today. We just need you to click down one button and not just take the obvious one.
Right. So one of the things that the ARM ecosystem lacks is basically the software around it, right? So take, for instance, Raspberry Pi has a bunch of software around it, but for the alternatives, no matter how powerful they are, they do lack the software, right? The operating systems, the applications, anything that actually works on it. If Ampere provides stronger hardware, I mean, that would be really welcome. But would it be able to provide the software that can actually create an ecosystem around it, like a community of some sort? So what would be Ampere's stand on this? How would they develop an ecosystem of software around it?
Okay, just to repeat the question back to you, speakers up here.
Right.
It's simply great. Yeah, we want to use it. What's the community there to help us out?
Not much about the community. The thing is, just because Raspberry Pi has support softwares, operating systems, and the fact that it's popular, widely popular, right? So people would be willing to write software for it, just because there would be people who would be using it. When it comes to Ampere, sure, there would be devices that would be powerful, and they would have a use case around it. But when it comes to software, so what would be the stand? How would Ampere address the availability of software that is ARC64 specific? And how would it make sure that it is available so that people can use it?
We're working with the public clouds to get our stuff there. So all of our stuff is ARC64. We don't produce x86 at all. So therefore, it's very much in our corporate interest to expand that out. And so that's what we're doing to do it. And like I said, we got the hardware part built out, and that pipeline's great. Now we're doing the software part of it. Does that answer? Sorry, I haven't. If not, please grab me afterwards and I'll go.
Oh no, I mean, if Ampere plans on developing a single board computer down the line, let's just say some kind.
Like...
in a hypothetical condition, right? In a very good utopia.
Yeah, no more of the crab that lives in the drawers,
As
right?
you can tell, there's a slight disagreement within the community of what we should do next. No, we won't be producing.
Oh, you won't be,
We
right.
will never compete with the Raspberry Pi or Edison and all of Jetson, those type of things.
Right.
Jetson, sorry. So we'll never have a $50 computer or $100.
Right.
What we're really going to do, I think, we're trying to get one that's under $1,000.
Uh-huh.
That's about as stripped down as we're going to go, just because our selling point is the cores and the single threaded going through it.
Makes sense.
So if we somehow produced it like if we competed with Raspberry Pi, okay, first of all, I mean, you don't compete with something that everybody loves. I mean, come on, but it just wouldn't work, and it's not in our interest.
Thanks.
So we can basically count on you to show up next year with an ARM64 laptop and give it away as swag.
Just in case my boss is seeing this, I can't. Who was like from the university said I don't speak on behalf of the company. I'm not a VP, so I don't speak on behalf of the company, but that's my goal. I would love to. We do have one. Like I said, we have a desktop. It's it's a desktop. It looks like a gaming machine. And one of our head of IoT, made it water cooled just because he hates noise. So there's no fans on it. So it's coming, and I hopefully will bring it next year. Oh yeah, I have to give it away too.
I assume that any patches required for your hardware will be pushed upstream to the kernel. You won't maintain your own kernel like the Raspberry Pi, for example, when they have kernel Raspberry Pi. So it's all will be standard upstream kernel patches maintainable.
Yeah, I never want to say never, but I hope not, because that's a lot of work. As I just told everybody here, that maintaining a kernel is a lot of work. I can't see that. What we want is to focus more on the general purpose side, making sure working with the communities of the various flavors of Linux, but also, I mean, getting a Windows Server, things like that, working on it. And they do. I mean, we're on Azure, and so you can put a Windows Server on it or Windows on it. So no is the answer. There's one more behind you.
Probably a fast and short question, because in building in CBS, so for the community, the ARch64 builders are currently a little bit stressed and slower than the x86. So have you, as Ampere, ever thought about maybe sponsoring some nodes for this for the CentOS infrastructure, so that we can build faster? It would be great. I don't know the details how you can sponsor, but I think some people in the room can tell you how you can do that. Because I think for me, it's always bad to wait for the ARch64 build, as it's always the latest that comes in.
Right. Just to make sure that I understood the question correctly, is like right now when you do the ARch64 build, it's the second build, right? It's the one.
Now they're done in parallel, but it always takes the longest. So if you can, the question at the end is, has Ampere thought about sponsoring hardware to the CentOS community so that we can build for ARch64 faster?
Yeah, and one of the biggest problems is most people build it on like an emulator that's on x86, and so that makes it really slow. It's really still slow. Okay, talk to me afterwards. And this is what we want. We want to work with you guys on how to build it. That's why I'm here. How can we make that process faster, easier? Because I want you to build it. And if you get frustrated, you're not going to.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
And wow, I really did not expect this many questions. This is awesome. No, this is awesome. But I don't know how I am for time. I really wish I.
There's a quick question. There's a rumor that ARM9 will have ABI breakage. Is this true?
I'm sorry.
ARM9 will have ABI breakage.
I feel like a politician up here, going, you don't answer the question. I'm sorry. On ARM9, there's a.
Will there be ABI breakage on ARM9? Is a question from the chat.
Since you said ARM, Oh, sorry. Well, that one I really didn't want to.
Yeah.
Heard. I don't know. Go to community.ampere.com and in there post that question, and I'll get you a real answer to it. Okay. So sorry about that. Like I said, I feel like, you're supposed to, politicians, you don't answer the question that was given to you, you answer.
We'll take one more and then move
They're
on.
not going to ever let me speak again.
Yeah, I want to applaud Ampere. I've been using the Oracle thing and hosting my own matrix over there. And it's working really nicely. Thanks.
Yeah, one of the things I did for my son is set up an account, and we now have a Minecraft server running on this, always free. And the Oracle stuff, that's what's really nice about it, and how it's growing so much is they really do have that always free tier. I mean, trust me, I get so much email from them. They want you to convert that into it, but it's a great thing for projects and whatnot to get started. So, but we love all the cloud providers, except for the bookstore. No, the more people who use it, more things are going. If it works on Graviton, it's going to work on our stuff. So we're really, really happy with that. Our first goal is to grow the pie. And then at that point, we'll worry about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And thank you for letting me borrow your laptop. Wow, that's nice. All right. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, I don't know how to get it. Email it. There's jacks up here that may or may not be live, so if they are, then a short cable would cut it. I don't have any.
There's no Ethernet here, right?
I don't have a cable.
Because
Does anybody have an Ethernet cable?
a long one.
Jacks up here if they're live. So 6 feet would probably do it.
Okay, he's trying to join the meeting now. One sec. Yeah, sorry, this is a bit. See, please wait for us to. What the fuck?
Can't do that. We're gonna have a hard time bringing in the remote board.
Yeah, let me. How are we with time?
We're running over into the break. Let's see. The break is supposed to start in 13 minutes. Oh no, yes, in 13 minutes. So we're good.
Come on. Okay, in the meantime, I don't care if the AC, there's nothing particularly sensitive here. Okay. Wait a second, Michelle. I need to get the audio. Wait, so I should mute mine. Michelle, unmute yourself. Yeah, but it's muted. I want to check that this audio works.
Are you going, this goes out, do you have a jack, an aux jack? Now we'll have to like.
I have an adapter. I have. Oh yes, no. I have it. Oh, I thought. Fuck. I thought this HDMI also carried. What the? I thought this HDMI also carried thing.
In this case, the audio.
Okay. Oh, okay. Try speaking, Michelle. Let me see, because I think I'm using the wrong audio peripheral then. Sound. You want headphones, right? This is not producing any audio whatsoever. You sure that's right?
Not sure. What else is on that?
HDMI? Also no audio. That's the speakers of my laptop, which is not gonna work. You sure there's no, check on your end if there's something you have to do to turn on audio.
Do you figure out the audio device?
No, but we don't think it's a laptop thing. It might be on the other end, because both HDMI audio and the headphone jack.
Did you redirect Zoom's audio back into the output device? Because by default it won't. You need two jack control to do it. Or set everything to
Audio
same as
settings.
system. Set everything
Test
to
speaker. Well, wait. It might be this one.
so
Test speaker.
input wire, that doesn't. Oh, now that's working.
No, this is the laptop speaker.
Yeah, so if you set it to same as system, close and reopen, it will power through whatever the default is at the time that you started. That sounds like the speakers.
Is
over
this
there.
going off the speaker there?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, let me see. Michelle, try saying something.
Yes.
No, wait, not headphones. Fuck. Try again. No, he's not muted. I'm muted. Okay, I have an idea. So. Or something.
I just put my phone into this microphone, And I was listening to music to test audio this week, and it was
We
pretty good.
we can try that. I mean, at this point.
It was really not bad, honestly.
Okay. Hello.
Oh, this looks so much better.
No, let's not do video, just audio, Michelle.
Oh yeah, right. Bandwidth issue, huh?
Is you on speaker?
I tried putting it on speaker, but speaker. No, wait, God damn it, I hate this thing. Michelle, try saying something. We are during a solution, maybe.
Maybe actually, if you could figure a fixed address for the DNS server with the Wi-Fi connection of the hotel, that's works. That's mostly DNS.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh.
Give it a shot.
Oh, but we're.
And thanks for the excellent reference.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, the Wi-Fi just dropped. Let me just go on 4G.
How you doing? Good. Oh, I hear it.
Come on, pick up the phone. I'm gonna close this because it's not useful.
Hello.
Okay, let's see if we can make this work. I put the phone very close to the mic. And I am going to attempt to run the slides for you. If Google Docs loads goes to Wi-Fi, actually let me use them from a PDF instead, because
Yeah,
Google
that's
Docs is
probably
very
easier.
trouble. Wait, how do you do full screen with the Vince? Present a slideshow. I don't know why they're small. Whatever, this one. Okay.
Ready?
Do you think the audio is gonna work? The mic, the speaker is down here.
Is that as loud as your phone goes?
Yeah, this is. I don't know. I don't know what else to. We're gonna try, Michelle. I don't know what else.
You can tether the computer to your phone, right? And then
Okay, I think we can hear you now.
I hear that pretty well, actually, out
I
here.
think this works. So you have to tell me when I need to advance your slides, because I'm gonna run your slides from here. So give your presentation when Sean. I'll give you the start when Sean tells me.
Okay, everyone, I think we've got this rigged up situation. So if you want to continue conversations, please out in the hallway. Otherwise, we'll be in here because we're already messing up with our audio. So.
One more try to see if I can get the Google Slides to work, because that would be much nicer.
All right, we've tempted fates with doing a remote presentation, so we're gonna.
let me
We will use.
let me out.
We will use these and slideshow. Okay, ready when you are, Michelle.
All right. Hi everyone. My name is Michel Salim, and I'm a production engineer at Meta working on Linux user space. This is a follow-up talk on the talk I presented at FOSDEM last year about using eBranch to bring over Fedora packages to Apple. Davide, next slide, please. So I'll go a bit quickly over over the introduction, since you can watch the talk from last year, and it's basically unchanged in the interest of time, since we are running a bit late already. But basically, next slide. What makes Apple special? And what makes it special? Next slide, please. Is basically in Fedora, you bring in packages one at a time, and basically they just get rebuilt for every new Fedora releases automatically. Whereas like with Enterprise Linux, since Red Hat is supporting the packages for a very long time, right, for about 10 years or more, only a relatively small subset of packages actually are taken from Fedora and branch for Enterprise Linux. And any other package that's not available can be packaged as part of the Apple repo, extra packages for Enterprise Linux. It's kind of similar to how, like a long time ago, after Red Hat Linux, you get Fedora Core, and which is maintained by Red Hat employees, and Fedora Extras, which is maintained by the community. Next slide, please. So, yeah, like as I mentioned earlier, Fedora releases basically are much shorter lived than CentOS releases, and Red Hat Enterprise Linux releases are even longer, which basically like you don't really want to maintain old package for a very long time unless you have to. Especially given that RHEL has stability guarantees, meaning you cannot just upgrade to the most recent version of package, and you might have to backport security fixes. Next slide. And basically, when you package for Fedora, like a individual Fedora contributor might basically be saying like, hey, I want to package the latest and greatest stuff. I'm not signing up to basically maintain security updates for a package for 10 years. Next slide, Apple workflows. So basically, everything starts when there's a new CentOS stream version that's available. And not long afterwards, you branch CentOS for, you branch like, you make a new Apple branch, and it starts off empty, basically, because like Fedora packages are not you have to opt in for your package to be available for any given Enterprise Linux version. Can we skip to populating Apple slide? So basically the workflow is that you have a package that you want that's not in CentOS stream, and you say, oh, okay, like I actually need to use this. Let me try to get it branched for Apple. If you're not the maintainer, you have to ask the maintainer to like to branch it for you. And then like you might say like, oh well, like this package cannot actually be built right now because it has like missing dependencies. And then you have to iterate for all the missing dependencies, and then you find they have missing dependencies. Can we move to the stale requests slide? And another problem is that these are community maintained, right? Like some people basically either like don't check Bugzilla often, or like they are not interested in Apple and they don't know like how to deal with like a request that they don't care about. And for general Fedora package maintenance, sometimes like basically for mass rebuilds or for if there's an urgent issue that the maintainer is not fixing, the proven packages can actually do it for them. But proven packages cannot actually branch packages for because that's not what it's meant for. So as part of this, to solve this problem, we have this new procedure now. Well, we have had this for like over a year, and it's been working quite well, called stalled requests. So basically, you ask for a package to be branched, and if there is no action, eventually, we can basically ask for like someone else, and preferably like also the packages SIG to be added to the ACL, so we can do it. So that addresses one side of the problem. That basically means like for any package that you don't have permission for, there is bounded time in which you are pretty much guaranteed to eventually have access to the package. The next problem is, can we go to page 15, the quote from Troy. So basically, your dependency chain might be like a very deep. This quote talks about like a chain that basically goes like a 4-level deep. but I've actually seen chains that are over 10, and I should have saved the example, but I don't have it right now. So you want to automate this, obviously, right? So with eBranch, can we go to the features page, slide 16? eBranch can do like what it can do for you is it can calculate the recursive dependencies of a package. It will tell you like how to actually do a chain build of all of its packages in the right order, so you get parallelism. This works most of the time. Sometimes you have dependency cycles. So like eBranch will also tell you if there are dependency loops and say, hey, you know, like there's this loop, so you can actually build these packages. And it also lets you file branch requests for like the missing dependencies using the templates that are standardized. Let's go to the walkthrough slide, page 18. So if you type eBranch, and it will tell you how to use it. There are two groups of commands right now, like dependencies and issues. Slide 19. So for example, if you're saying, hey, I want to branch B4, this Python B4 package for Apple 9, it will tell you, well, it was telling me this last year because it's not packaged. It requires the KIM py and that. And it also tells you which dependency was requested and what source package actually satisfied that dependency. Can you go to slide 20? In case your dependencies themselves have dependencies, what you can do is like you unfold and say like, hey, the dependencies that I found, like I want to now like do the calculation for them, and you can clean up and say like, oh, actually, like I know this dependency is actually available. Say like it's already part of your side tag, but you have not actually like released it yet. You can prune the new list, and then you can do an iteration to actually then like compute like the missing dependencies for any new dependency you have, and eventually you get a stable state, and there's no new dependency to discover. Slide 21. You can then say like, hey, you know, like I want to file a request for this package, and you can mark it as like saying like, oh, this is a blocker for like another issue that you've already filed before, or an existing issue. You can optionally say like, hey, I want to comment in this package. Then you basically provide your Fedora account ID. And you can also say, hey, please also add the Apple packages SIG to the ACL by passing the --SIG. Next, chain building, slide 22. Then you can basically say, hey, eBranch, like tell me how to chain build all these dependencies. And it will tell you, oh, okay, like this is like a chain build invocation. It's almost like what you need to pass with FatPKG chain build, except that FatPKG chain build expect to be called from one of the repos, in the final group. So you just basically go there first and take out the last component from the chain build string. Slide 23, RPM distro repo query. So this is what eBranch use to actually do the querying to see what's available, like in say like CentOS versus what's available on Rawhide. Initially when I did this last year, I was actually shipping my own repo files and just marking them as disabled by default, which can be a problem. Like say like someone run DNF with like enable repo star, it will enable all this. It will enable dependencies that you might not actually want to have. So RPM repo query is a project started by Neil Gompa, since he works on a lot of distributions. It supports a lot of distributions from Fedora to CentOS to OpenSUSE and Mageia. And the repo definitions go to a different location, so there is no chance of DNF accidentally using it by default. All right. So let's talk about real life usages of eBranch. Slide 25, please. So this is what I've been using it for the past year also. These are all like these are the stats for like all the new packages I added to body for Apple 9. There's like 749 packages since January the 1st last year. And as you can see, most of them are actually RAS packages. Slide 26. So basically, like as you can see, like before November last year, this is basically before I implemented chain build support in eBranch. It's like it's not really feasible before to actually package basically to add packages to Apple that has a huge number of dependencies until you automate the process. Slide 27. Okay, so these are some examples of actual updates in Apple that are done using eBranch. Snoop is a BPF-based tool to actually trace Linux kernel internals. This one brings in a total of 189 packages. I had to split the update into several chunks just because someone told me that otherwise, like a body might kill over if the update is over 200 packages. And then like ref1e is a dependency for FFmpeg, and that one is a total of 152 packages. And there's a bunch of others. Basically, it's not that the packages have themselves have a ridiculous number of immediate dependencies. It's just that the dependency depend on other dependencies. And sometimes, like even for a single project in Rust, you need to build it like in 3 stages. First, you build some like derived macros, and then you build like some core thing, and then like you build something else on top. And it's you don't go through this problem in Fedora mostly because most of the dependencies are already there. But when you start with Apple, it's a greenfield, and you have to bring in everything. The good news is, as you can see, like the number of packages are trending down because more and more dependencies are already there. Slide 28. So there are some known issues right now, and there are some workarounds you can do for them. Most Rust packages are actually just source packages because Rust is statically linked. You ship the source for most scripts, and you only actually ship binaries if you are actually shipping some tools. The problem is this means some sub packages actually like have dependencies that you only discover when you try to install them, because they might not be if it's not compiled as part of running tests, then like we don't actually have the build dependency for it. So like you can use mock with post install basically so when you're building locally, you make sure that anything you build can actually be installed. The problem is that this takes time, especially if you have 100 dependencies to do. So in the future, like I'm working on adding install time dependencies support to eBranch. The other alternative is that you chain build everything, since like eBranch will tell you everything you need to build this thing anyway. Just that some of your dependencies might have sub packages that you cannot install yet. Create a body update and then basically download it and try to install, and then like chase the missing dependencies. The problem here is that like some people might expect the update to be ready, and then they give you negative karma because like, oh, this update doesn't actually install. Next slide, slide 29. The other problem is how do you deal with dependency cycles? In Rust, it's easy. Again, because crates are mostly source only, you can just cheat and like tag the rawhide packages to your site tag, and then rebuild them, and then untag the rawhide packages. With Python, when you're working with branching Python packages, you cannot, because they install to different paths depending on the system Python version. So you have to disable some optional features so that like you break the loop, and then like build, and then you can re-enable them, which is extra tricky if the package is RPM auto spec. because then like your release number will be out of sync unless you bootstrap an older version and then like break the dependency loop, and then like you can package a new version after. So one thing that really helps, slide 30, is like a lot of language ecosystems, especially newer ones like Golang and Rust. Basically, they have fast code policies that say, hey, when you have a Go package, you must add the special interest group to the ACL so they can maintain the package. With Python, it's optional. Like you can grant the Python packages SIG access to your package, but it's not mandatory. And with Apple, it's also like not currently required. Although we probably should consider this because it will make bring ups much easier. Slide 31. So eBranch is now packaged in Fedora and Apple all the way to Apple 8, and you can just install it with DNF install eBranch. One of the components that I use to detect dependency cycles, unfortunately, pulls in a lot of optional dependencies. So you might want, if you don't want to install anything else, you can just set the option to disable weak dependencies. Page 32. Yeah, so like I could definitely use feedback. I'm a bit unhappy with the way like some comments are grouped and named right now, and like there are probably things that I haven't thought of about how to like improve the workflow. And if anyone wants to submit PRs, like I will gladly accept them. Slide 34. So let's talk about what feature works I'm planning to add. Install time dependencies, as I mentioned before, like this is an issue, especially with Rust packages. It's a bit expensive. Like I know how to do it, but so basically you have to say like, hey, you know, like say you are missing source package A, you have to check row height and see like which binary packages are derived from the source package, and then you have to check all of them. Like, hey, what are your missing install time requirements, and basically add them, and then like add them and like analyze them recursively. The nice thing is that install time dependencies basically can be built at the same stage as the package that require them, because you only need them like at the next stage when you try to install them anyway. Page 35. So one feature I have not implemented is basically, hey, given this report that has like 100 missing dependencies listed, automate filing branch requests for all of them. And the reason I have not is that currently there's no way, the tool doesn't know how to check if there's an existing branch request yet. The problem is that branch request issues might not be uniformly like, detecting them is a hard problem because they are not standard, right? Like anyone can file a request for a branch with like a slightly different wording. So like when I implement this, it might have to be interactive, like the Debian report bug tool. Like you have to say like, hey, I find something that might be a match. Is this what you want, or like do you want to file a new one? And there's currently no check for checking if a package is actually in CentOS stream or not. But that might require integrating with Fedora's PDC. Next slide, 36. So once we add the ability to file like multiple branch requests at the same time, one other issue that we have is that say you end up with 50 branch requests. It's 50 bugs that you have to keep track of, and then like to follow the stalled procedure. Then like after a week, you have to ping and say like, hey, are you working on this, or like do you want to give me access? And then after another 2 weeks, then you have to like do the escalation and say, hey, the package maintainer doesn't want to deal with this package. Can I get access to it? So this can be automated, and it currently is not automated. Page 37. The page number might be off by one. I'm sorry, since I added a slide after Davide downloaded it. A refactor that I'm considering in the future is the dependency resolution might be useful as a standalone library, or basically or eBranch can be used as that. And right now it's shelling out to DNF, or it's shelling out to repo query, which is basically a wrapper on DNF. When DNF5 is out, it will be a bit faster if you can just use the Python API instead of shelling out each time. All right, resources, which I think on the PDF is slide 38. So there are some links here basically to see to learn more about Apple, how you can get involved with Apple, the packages SIG, and the link to the eBranch and RPM distro repo query projects. And yeah, that's it. I can take questions now. Davide, if you can repeat the questions, that would be useful.
Any questions in the room? Do we have any questions on the? There's nothing online. All right, well, thank you. I don't know if you can hear us clap, but I guess we'll do it anyway. That's.
Thank you, Michel.
All right, so we'll go ahead. We ran through the break, but we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break and start again at 4:30. We'll have an automotive SIG update, and then I will let that run its full time. It'll just run into the board AMA, which was scheduled for too long anyway. So 10-minute break.
Bye. Thank you.
While Eric is setting up, we will do the giveaway. That will get you all back in the room for Eric.
Yeah, that's why I'm scared. I think we were talking about action. Like, what? That's people in the name. I was like, what? But it's more bigger. You just see the wood. As opposed to. But I think doing this one, yeah. I know now. If I didn't know. I like misunderstood that. I thought it was just I don't use that. If you reply, they always have Zoom meetings. You are the second one. It's never intentional. It's always like, we brought this one, we paid gold, we already paid gold. You have to. I started with my just before COVID. And I was like, it's much better than whatever they had before. Oh, that was because it wasn't Skype. It was it was MSN Messenger pretending to be Skype. Something like that. Something else. Yeah, it was Link pretending. Yeah, they had Link, and then they bought Skype. Instead of using Skype for business as well, they used Link, rebranded it as Skype. Even in office, you know, you looked at the name of the irony. You can do it in the browser. I didn't mention how supportive it is. how it is, it's like, yeah, you download the other.
The thing is, the app is like Electron based. So it's pretty much the same as using Chrome.
Yeah. It's not as specific. It's kind of nice when you have like the ability to pass.
You still open it in browser. The only reason I submitted I didn't see it. It's good for that, but yeah. I asked it. I just want Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's see.
No, I can't. I tried blocking the access.
There's a tax agreement between our and the US. That's the package on this. Yes. I think the rational, if you're supposed to pay tax for it, or if there's a difference. Usually, compared to Israel, salary, the tax on the salary is usually lower. Stuff like that, then Israel is the second biggest community of Americans outside of
It's the moment everyone's been waiting for. Real quickly, we're going to give out the backpacks because that'll get you in the room again. Backpacks. People, the item you all been wanting. Backpack time. I've lost 3 questions. I have 3 backpacks. And you have to be honest with your answers, folks. All right, if they don't come in, they don't get a chance. So, first question. Who came from the farthest location? If you think you came from far away, speak now. We're going to need exact locations to break the tie. Okay, you are definitely not the farthest. Wait, what do we got? Brazil. So what's farther, India or Brazil? We're going to have to Google, and we have 2 different towns. Belgium to Brazil, and Belgium to Punjab, and where? You're going to have to spell that one.
Where are we in Brazil?
Where are we in Brazil? What town? Rio.
To Brussels. Well, why am I doing this without? Oh,
I don't know why you're doing it without your glasses.
That's 9,422 kilometers.
Okay, so try Pune. And then we're going to have to get you to spell yours.
Oh, that's only 6,987 kilometers.
All right,
actually.
so unless you're really, really far from him,
Like an extra 3,000 kilometers. That seems unlikely.
Brazil is the winner.
Oh.
Did you lie to us?
No. I'm serious. I was born in Brazil, but I live in Denmark.
He lives in Denmark. You lied to us. From their home. Okay, so now you need to find.
Now we're back to India.
We're back to the 2 India. He's farther?
Is it farther? Yeah.
Congratulations. All right. Our next question. Well, we might have to. No, this revolves around honesty, folks. We're looking for the longest contributor to CentOS.
Anything. Contributions to packaging work, contributions around the SIGs, promotion, documentation.
No one wants to admit how long they've been contributing to the CentOS?
No one wants to admit how old they are. Is that right?
I didn't word it that way. No one? Okay, I got a free backpack. 7 years? I'll take 7 years. Anyone longer than 7 years? Now I need months.
Well, we got 2 at 7 years and 2 backpacks.
Well, or are we not doing how many at the house? Up to you.
Up to you. Unless you want to tie break this.
Give us your month.
7 years and 2 days.
7 years, 2 days.
He will start 1 month after me. Exactly. He used to be by
All right. You still might end up one. Okay. Who wants to admit how many CentOS stream machines you have in your house?
In your house.
In your house. So no, CERN can't count all their CERN machines and Facebook can't count all their Facebook machines. 4? Can anyone beat 4? Really? Okay.
Oh, it's a CentOS setup. I have like multiple Raspberry Pis running ARM versions of them. So, yeah.
Do we count Raspberry Pis running ARM, CentOS? Sure. Congratulations.
Well, you got one after all.
See? Thank you all for participating.
All right. Do we have Eric ready? His slides are ready. Oh, there. Okay. So Eric will present to us, give us the automotive SIG update, and then we'll bring the board up and you can ask them questions.
Yeah, I won't keep everyone very long because I know people are hungry in that. But this is the CentOS automotive SIG, so I'm going to give a fairly high-level overview of what we do because we're only about 1 or 2 years old, and there'll be some Q&A at the end if you want to dig into any area a bit deeper. So yeah, I'm Eric Curtin. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat. I work in the automotive org. So here are the automotive SIG community contacts. Jeffro, I call him, is our acting chair. Pierre-Yves Chabon is our technical lead. He's actually at the back there. And Ian McLeod is our architect for the automotive organization. We actually have a decent presence at FOSDEM, so if you're interested in automotive stuff, I recommend quizzing up a few of these guys because everyone's working on different interesting things. We have Peter, who's also in the room. Igal's the guy over there. We have Michael Ho, Alexander Larson, and apparently Michael Ho is a clone. So I'm here as well, so I'm always free to take questions. So what does the automotive SIG do? The purpose of the automotive SIG is to support and contribute to open development of software targeted at in-vehicle use cases. We create automotive-related open source software. We incorporate upstream automotive-related products into our automotive distribution, which I'm going to talk about in a while. And we build a CentOS stream variant for automotive. So the automotive SIG produces 3 kinds of artifacts. So the automotive stream distribution, which sometimes we call AutoSD for short. The automotive SIG repositories, and we produce some sample images for you to play around with and develop on. So yeah, just to describe what the automotive stream distribution is. So it's an upstream repository to the Red Hat in-vehicle operating system, which sometimes you'll hear people call Rivus for short. Much like CentOS stream is to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So just to like glue this into people's heads, if everyone can repeat after me, AutoSD is to Rivas what CentOS Stream is to RHEL. So. Okay, cool, perfect. You have it, you got it. Oh yeah, and our official names are the longer versions, just to get that right. So we have a very similar workflow to RHEL. So in RHEL, the various SIGs contribute to CentOS Stream, and that eventually becomes, or it propagates to RHEL. So in the automotive org, we're very similar but different. So the CentOS automotive SIG contributes to automotive stream distribution, and that all gets propagated. Well, I shouldn't say that. That gets propagated to Red Hat in Vehicle OS. So we've two kinds of repositories at present. This could be subject to change, but this is the way things are as of now. We have an automotive repository and an AutoSD repository. My simple way of explaining this is automotive repo, it's kind of like RHEL, so it's community supported, and AutoSD in comparison does get propagated to Rivas. So it wouldn't be impossible that like an automotive package does get into Rivas, but it's more like an EPEL equivalent. Like some of the packages are experiments and stuff we're doing. So, so yeah, this is just a link to where we have some sample images. So there's some images you can install on hardware. There's images you can use with emulators. We have x86 based images. We have ARM based images. OS3 images, non-OS3 images. There's a lot of images you can play around it. I went through all that already. Okay. Oh yeah, just so I briefly referenced earlier how the artifacts are separate to the normal RHEL workflow, and you're probably curious, well, if it's RHEL, if it's like RHEL, why not just use CentOS Stream and RHEL? So there are a couple of differences between us and CentOS Stream. Some of the differences here are the kernel. So our kernel is like it's a real-time kernel rather than the standard preempt dynamic configured kernel. Sometimes you'll see some extra ARM enablement there. We strip some kernel modules, but for the most part, it's like 99% the RHEL kernel, which we kind of rely on the stability of like CentOS Stream and RHEL for functional safety, for example, because it's a proven robust operating system. So we also put a huge amount of resources into making sure whatever is required goes through ISO 26262 certification, which is a functional safety certification. We have some automotive specific packages as well. That's another difference, some other ones. I just want to take a moment to explain the difference between the real-time kernel and the normal everyday kernel that you guys are probably running there. So the normal, most commonly used kernel, preempt dynamic, that provides a throughput-oriented scheduler in the kernel. The difference between the real-time one is that the real-time scheduler, it's more focused on low latency, consistent response time, and determinism. So a simple kind of automotive analogy would be like when you hit the brakes in your car, number 2 is more desirable than number 1. I don't know about you guys, but if I hit the brakes in my car, I kind of like them to react consistently. I don't know. So that's the advantage. Oh yeah, I just want to say one of the neat things about Rivas-based images is, sorry, apologies to the marketing folks. One of the neat things about Red Hat in-vehicle operating system-based images, from a user space perspective, it looks pretty much the same as Rel 9 or CentOS Stream 9. That's pretty advantageous because if you build a package for any of the distributions in the CentOS Stream family, it should just work. So for example, if you can imagine a fleet of vehicles connected to like a Rel-based cloud backend, the same packages should like just run fine on both. So that's one of the things I find kind of neat. So yeah, looking forward, one of the things that came out of our automotive work is ComposeFS. So that's a new file system. Alexander Larson's actually doing a talk on that. If you want to attend, it's pretty interesting. Our automotive container team is working on some frameworks for container orchestration in vehicles. And so that's kind of cool. Some of those guys are here, so take advantage of quizzing them up. We're going to be doing more ARM enablement on automotive boards. ARM boards are, and I put a star there because ARM boards are definitely kind of our focus because that dominates the automotive ecosystem. But we do keep an eye on other CPU architectures like RISC-V and x86. And we actually build images for x86 as well. So if you just want to develop code on your local x86 laptop, that's kind of useful. And yeah, watch out for more announcements from our various partnerships. And there's plenty of previous announcements from partners like Qualcomm and GM. If you Google them, I'm sure you'll find them. And that's it. I have a few links there of our matrix. That's a useful resource if you ever have questions. Jeffro and Pierre as well, they host this monthly community meeting. That's quite that's a good opportunity to ask questions face to face if you ever feel like attending that. But that's kind of it. Are there any questions?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Just curious, which vendors are eventually trying to implement Red Hat in their cars? Or can't you say any names yet?
No, I'm not allowed to talk about everyone, but GM, we announced GM. We work closely with GM. And we work with Qualcomm as well because they produce quite a few automotive boards. But I'm not allowed to talk about any of the others. Yeah. But no, in 6 months' time, I don't know, maybe you Google Red Hat in vehicle operating system and there might be more announcements. There might not be. I don't know. Let's see.
Yep.
Do you have a lot of engagement from the open source community? Are people testing it, filing bugs, stuff like that?
Yeah. What are we using for a bug? Do you know what our bug tracker is, Peter? No. We do have engagement from the community. If you look at our GitLab links, I won't mention any specific names, but if you look at the pull requests and stuff, you'll see, yeah, we have plenty of engagement from the community. Everything's open source, so yeah, I'm not going to pick out anyone in particular, but we also have partnerships with various organizations, like Eclipse SDV is one of them, and Sophie is another. I just didn't list them here because I'm not confident on our official status of all those. But that monthly call, Pierre at the back and Jeffro run every month, I would suggest tuning into that because they always, that's one part Jeffro almost always announces the status of our partnerships with the various communities.
So who's the target audience for the open source parts? Is it somebody hacking their own open source software for their car, or is it some other companies that we're working for?
yeah, no, this isn't kind of like my Ford Fiesta is outside. I'm gonna stick in a USB stick, and no, it's not like that. So automotive companies, they'll play around with our operating system on a VM. I can show you what that looks like right now if you'd like. And yeah, and they contact us if they're interested, like GM have done, for example.
So the open source part is basically like an ad, like try this, and maybe you'll like drive us.
Yeah, but yeah, it's everything's open, and that's even a lot of the existing solutions out there. Like say, a lot of infotainment units are already Linux based, and there's a lot of companies out there building their own Yocto Linux based distributions for automotive already. So Linux in a car isn't a new thing in itself. It's just if you would like to use a RHEL-like distribution in your car, I guess Drivus is the product for you.
Thank you.
I do have one in the chat that I'm gonna have to run back and read. Yep. Okay.
What's the kind of update scheduling and update delivering to the vehicles? Is it like one and done, like installed when the car is produced and then never updated again, or is it like, how is it like?
Yeah, so we're aiming for like 15 years plus support or whatever. Our update mechanism, we did a couple of talks earlier that referred to OS3. That's
Right.
like our recommended update mechanism. So yeah, an update would normally be delivered via OS3. OS3 would do the new deploy, and on the next reboot, you should be in the new version of the software. So that's kind of how.
So are the updates like delivered over the air, or are the cars sent to like, well, the centers for them to be installed manually by the folks who are in charge of it?
Yeah, it's. I'll be honest, it's actually a bit of both. Some are over the air. Yeah, it depends on the OEM. It depends on what components. Like if it's just the general Linux user space, yeah, that's probably going to be OS3.
Yeah.
But if it's an underlying firmware or something, it depends. To be honest, there's no. Yeah, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point. The gal just said. So like, we will download all the new binaries and whatever, but like it's an atomic switch. It's not going to update while you're driving. It's it's on next boot. You'll be in the new version of the software. No. Yeah.
So
that would be fun, but no. I have a bonus slide as well if you want to see what it looks like. Yeah. Suggest that on, yeah. I'm going to run a VM just to show you what it looks like. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to put up your hand and ask. Oh, run VM is it's just a Python script we have in one of our Git repos. It's basically so you don't have to do QEMU-system- a million command line options. So it's just a wrapper for QEMU. It's pretty good though. So yeah, that's it booting. You see CentOS AutoSD. So yeah. Images, isn't it? So I wrote this very simple container file.
It's like Putman run brakes.
21 hours ago. Yeah, so I don't have any complex automotive application here because I was worried about time and all that. But yeah, that container was basically Causa application, which I'm sure you've seen before, saying, welcome to guest Fedora container running on automotive stream distribution host. So as you can see, it's very Rail-like. You can do your DNF installs, RPM, OS3 install, whatever you like. So yeah, there's a
We have
question.
2 questions out of chat first. First is, how is the automotive kernel built? Is it strictly part of AutoSD, or is there also a community automotive kernel? And if the latter, how do you deal with signing?
Yes, yeah. The signing part is tricky. We haven't quite figured that out yet. Although we have plenty of ideas for it. Where do we build it? We just build it on CBS, but it is its own separate package. I think it's called Kernel Automotive. Yeah. So we built it. We build it on CBS, just where everything else is built. The other question about the signing, that's something we haven't quite figured out, but if any of you follow like the new UAPI group is called, it's like the Leonard Pottering group, where they're working on stuff like unified kernels and that kind of stuff, and they have a signing mechanism for that. So I would recommend reading that documentation because that's kind of the direction we're going in general. Also, I referred to Alexander Larsson's Compose FS talk. That's all linked as well because I think that's like the final point in our chain of trust, the actual file system. So, yeah.
And then, do you have any bridge with AGL? I'm assuming automotive grade Linux.
Yeah, I'm not sure what our status is on that. I know Jeffro, who's our chair. He's talked about that before. He's on their mailing list and he tracks their stuff, but I'm not sure we have an official relationship with him. Maybe Pierre can answer there actually.
So with regard to AGL, we don't really have we're cousins in the same way that Debians and the Rail family are cousins. We're targeting different parts of the community. AGL is meant to give you all the tools you need to build your own Linux to run in the car. AutoSD and the in-vehicle OS from Red Hat are meant to provide us a functional safety certified product that you can take off the shelf and run with. So we don't exactly address the same segments, so we don't compete on the same things. We're just two open source projects working in the same industry or the same ecosystem.
Yeah, Pierre answered that perfectly. So.
Is there any plans in the future or currently to run like something graphical, like Wayland X, to show GPS or something, or running Spotify on a screen in front of the car, like Teslas, like some info center thing?
Is it possible to turn up the volume on the mic a little?
Oh,
I didn't.
I think the big problem is the mics are all facing us, and we all hear it fine, and you don't.
Oh, UIs.
Let's see if I can create feedback.
Yeah, I was thinking, is there any plans to have a graphical UI to show like in the front center of the car, which like Wayland X or something, for like showing a GPS graphically or running Spotify or like an info center car screen in front?
That's a good question. So yeah, we have an internal kind of infotainment team that look at that stuff. I would suggest asking on the matrix on that. But the other thing that we're looking into, say if you had your own infotainment platform, you have the option of virtualizing that platform on top of AutoSD. or running it in a container or sandbox of some sort. So we support that. Say if certain car manufacturer really likes this infotainment platform and they say, look, we're going to virtualize it on AutoSD, so AutoSD doesn't have to worry about it so much. Yeah, we're open to that kind of thing as well. So there's options there.
Any more questions? All right. Thank you, Eric. That was great.
Thanks, Dave.
So I think we're going to bring the board up. Do we even want to try to dial in virtual people or just bring up the people we have in person? Yeah, right. Maybe just sit on Matrix with them and they can text a question. Yeah. Okay. Let's, well, who do we have? Who's,
Me just try for fancies if we can pull up the Google Meet. Do you have the URL for the Gmeet?
No.
Was it in the thing? I don't think either. But yeah, I don't. Let's just do it via text.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be easier. Yeah, we'll. Yeah.
we have two of you, we've got Mike and Thomas, right?
Yes, Thomas is behind you.
Okay, let's just.
Mike.
Does that work?
Mike.
Okay, you have a mic.
Well, no, we'll pass this one.
Oh, are we just passing that? That works then.
Stand.
Run with
Yeah.
this one.
All right, just so everyone knows, we have Bex and Pat Ryecki on chat, but due to the connectivity issues, we're not going to try to get them on screen or anything. So if you have any questions for them, we can get an answer because they are watching the live stream. But we'll just text back their responses. So for anyone who doesn't know, my name is Amy Marish. My IRC nick is Spots. I am the chair of the CentOS board. I have been using CentOS forever. I joined the board and became chair last year and came out of the Cloud SIG.
Hi, I'm Davide. I co-chair the CentOS Cyberscale SIG, among other things. I have been on the board for a few years now. I've been using CentOS for over a decade.
Hello, I'm Thomas. I've been contributing to CentOS since almost 2011, so 10 years, something like that. And I've been invited to the board as an individual member 3 years ago, something like that, or 2 years, 3 years, I think. And currently I'm working at CERN, and until 2 years ago, I was responsible for the Linux team, and now I'm more in the beams department, trying to be sure that the accelerator beams are going each way and collide. That's it.
I'm Mike. I've been on the board since we had a board, and which was about 2003? No, 2013. And I'm also one of the authors of Koji. So, and been using CentOS. I don't even know how long.
So far from our online focus, Thomas is taller than he imagined. That was from Bex.
So can we get an exact date on the, it sounds like we've got a 10-year anniversary coming up then, if it was 2013. We need to find the date and make you
So
a
that
cake.
we can have a party.
Yeah.
That's just a good excuse, yeah.
It'll be an online party, but we'll have a party. unless it's near DevConf US, and then we can have it live and in person.
Yeah.
Even better.
So does anyone have any questions for us? Otherwise, we'll kind of ramble a little bit and give you updates of some of the things that we have in mind for the coming year.
Please ask questions. It would be a lot less awkward if you do.
I can ramble. Y'all have seen me entertain you. So one of the things have been discussing is where to have connects. We will most likely be back in Boston for DevConf US, but we've been putting out there whether we want to go to DevConf CZ, have some kind of presence, not an official like connect or anything at Flock. And Thomas has kind of said we can come to CERN.
Yeah, sir.
So
The last event we had at CERN was very good.
So it could turn into we all head to CERN and then go over to ZZ for DevConf. So just some things to keep in mind. These are very rudimentary plans, but things, we have in mind in that direction as far as meeting up again in person. What else do we have going on? Monday, if you're still here, we have the Docs Day.
Yes.
Please let us know if you plan on attending. It sounds like we'll be discussing maybe sigs.centos.org versus
Apparently,
the
we're
wiki.
going to be killing the wiki, according to Fabian. So
Yes. So
The future of the wiki.
the future of the wiki is the hot topic. We are scheduled for all day. We don't think we're going to go all day. So we'll probably start in the morning and go for a bit, either break before or after lunch, do a lunch. We don't know yet. But if you are still in town on Monday, please join us, especially to discuss the wiki and its fate. It has a fate, whether it's positive or negative.
We have to do
it has a
something with the
fate.
stuff that's in it. So
Because the chance, we're not going to be able to dig down into the docs, but it does really seem like we need to discuss the fate of the wiki. So we'll at least accomplish that on Monday.
and we have a board meeting on Tuesday, don't we?
Wednesday?
Yeah, but
We're going to make sure we have quorum before we bail out saying whether we're having it or
I
not.
didn't send the invite yet. We are waiting to be sure that everybody will recover for FOSDEM.
Yeah. So if anyone would like to get added to this board meeting or future board meetings, let Thomas know.
Yeah, people might not be aware the board meetings are monthly and they are open. And then the week following them, we have board office hours too, where the board meeting is the board talks amongst itself, and you can watch and maybe comment. The board office hours are, please come by and.
And the board office hours are in IRs. No, they're not.
No.
They are on video. Anyone can join. If no one shows up, we chit chat for an hour. So even if you don't have an issue, but you want to chit chat with us, it's your opportunity.
Yeah.
Not that any of you are chit chatting with us right now. Hint, hint. Just saying.
The board meetings are recorded and published to YouTube. The office hours are not recorded. So.
And if you want to join the board meeting, you can ask to be added to the invite. And if you have something that you want to raise, easiest is for you to file a ticket on the tracker beforehand, so we can get it on the agenda. But if there's items you want to have discussion or to be present to comment, you can ask to be added.
Yeah, and if you are not happy with how the board meeting is handled, or if you want change, let me know as well, because I'm the secretary. I can make things happen. If you see you want the announce more in advance, you want something, let us know, because we didn't get a lot of feedback, and now we have few people that show up all the time, so they've been added to the invitation, so they don't have to ask anymore. So if you come a few times, then you will be added forever, so be careful. And if you see anything in our process that you don't like or you would like improve, please ping me, don't hesitate.
Yeah, so the board meetings went open, I'll say a year and a half ago.
Something like that, yeah.
And I come from the OpenStack community where we have 4 opens of open community, open design, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to make us as open as possible. So if you think we were too closed off before and not accessible, I'm looking to change that. That includes a yearly check-in on whether the board members want to stay on board. For the leadership of myself, Pat Ryecki, and Thomas, do we all want to stay on? Do you want us to stay on? And we asked the board that. So we're trying to be as open as possible. So please keep that in mind, and anyone's invited.
Yes, and if you have feedback on, as Thomas said, on the meetings, but also in general on activities of the board, on the project, on anything else, please let us know. It is much more useful if we get feedback so you can course correct or address things. Yay.
Yeah, someone has to start.
Please.
Maybe not that directly, not that interesting for many people, but for people working in SIX. In my talk today, I had two points that have not been checked, and I think both are currently somehow blocked. What would you, in your perspective, because I know it's not the board to decide in most of these cases, what are your recommendations to get stuff like that moving forward? So one hot topic for how long now? 1.5 years is Secure Boot.
Yeah. Yes, I have a vested interest in that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a while we had the list of older issues and we addressed them every time and there weren't any updates. So to actually speed up the meetings, we have all those items on the agenda and we ask if there are any updates to any of them versus going, okay, number 45, number 46, are there any updates? Because we were running the meetings and they were going pretty long, which they didn't need to. So we do bring it up every board meeting. We don't always have control over that.
Every person I talked today who had the coffee was like, "Hey, Secure Boot." So I yeah, I will ping.
I mean, the last
person
update
before next week.
the last update we have is that there was hardware purchased.
Yes, the ticket, as far as I remember, is still assigned to Brian.
No, Fabian saying no, that the hardware has not
I
been.
mean, then I'm not aware of anything like this, so clearly no.
Okay, because that's what we had from Brian, or at least it was in the process of being purchased. But it's not, even if we have it, it's not installed anywhere that we know of.
I have no ticket for racking or even purchasing. And even that is not enough because it goes further than that for the chain of trust about shim and secure. So someone somewhere has to decide and make a decision. At the infrasec, we can't because clearly I asked and I was shut down. My proposal was shut down. So basically someone somewhere has to decide and say yes, no to the 6. Or maybe like that will never happen is an answer.
Yeah, there's two parts to this. One is the technical and like buying the hardware, and the other is, as you said, the like policy part. Yeah, I don't know what we can do on this side. This is one of those, I think, areas that are somewhat fuzzy in like the way the project works because like at the end of the day, the infrastructure and the tooling and all the process is controlled by Red Hat infrastructure. So we have limited control there. So yeah, I would also like to see this moving forward because it's blocking a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, as I said, we'll make sure to have an update next week. I think we can just ask involve people before Wednesday meeting and get a clear update because this is something that was going on for a few weeks. So we hope we can get more info for you.
But yeah, and we should follow up with because this was assigned to Brian. We should follow up with Brian if he's still on it, or have it reassigned to somebody else if he isn't.
And maybe we need to reshuffle the priority on that.
So short follow-up, because Secure Boot was, Mike, is just an example because there are other cases. So would your recommendation then be to, because if you're like me not working for Red Hat, I don't know who is working on what inside, and of course something has to be, some point you need these decisions from Red Hat. So from someone working for Red Hat, would your recommendation then be to contact the Red Hat liaison that's part of the governing board as a SIG? Would be that you? Is that what you would recommend in that case then?
So just back comments, say I'll echo Amy comment. I thought this was almost done. So I think it's the right way. But as I said, I think we need a better update. We'll try to get it for next board meetings and to try to push things forward. I think we can.
But I agree with you. I think in general, we need a better way to understand where these lines are and where the right point of contacts. And this is one of the pain points for sure in the project. The other thing that I say that I've personally found frustrating over time and we try to improve is it's hard to know where the lines are and like what is okay, what is not okay, what is doable, what is not doable. And some of these we managed to get clarity over time. Some of these are still a bit fuzzy, or there's maybe willingness to make things happen, but there aren't resources, or there's differences in like opinions or how things could be implemented. So yes, this is definitely all a work in progress.
And we are making sure that tickets are assigned to somebody and that they are being commented on. Some of them are old, not gonna lie. I mean, I think Secure Boot is like 3 years old. But we're hoping to make progress and to get some of these older ones off the table. Whether it ends up being that the answer is no, but it's not fair to anybody for them to just sit around like that.
Yep.
So we are working on that. Anything else besides Secure Boot?
I mean, we can also keep talking about Secure Boot, but
We could.
it's running in circles a bit.
I mean, we've got our little bit of an update from Vex, which we read.
Oh
but-
yeah, did we?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else.
What are you doing to promote CentOS Stream?
Oh, I can take on that one if you want. So, for example, this year we had a nice meeting with China users. We met with them over a nice podcast, and we try to engage with them. We try to give them like tools on how they could contribute and what they wanted to do. So it was kind of a big podcast with a lot of people. It was very interesting. We get a lot of feedback. I was speaking with Bex on that, and the conclusion was they approach us and they try now to contribute to the promosing, right? We are in the process of onboarding them on the promosing. It's been a bit slower than what we expect, I think, but it's one of the outcome. And I think that was quite enriching to talk to a user directly and to see what questions they had and how they perceive CentOS Stream compared to the previous CentOS Linux and all these kind of things. So for me, this is one of the examples of something I've been involved this year.
Yeah, I've been doing conference talks for the most part and trying to talk about use cases and things people can do with this because I think that's valuable. I think it definitely would be great to see more folks that are involved in the community speak publicly about what they are doing with Stream and like what they would like to see happen with Stream in public venues. My impression is that there's a lot of places that are leveraging this within like internal processes and pipeline that aren't necessarily talking about it that widely.
Yeah, and I think originally everyone was just gun shy to talk about it because there was such a backlash over the end of life of CentOS 8. So now that that has died down, people are used to Stream. Yeah, I mean, the best thing we can do is get talks out there, get people out there, maybe write some blogs, and it's better coming from the users than us. So maybe we do a campaign internally within, on the devel list or a users list and, just try to get those stories out and hopefully get talks.
Yeah, the other thing I say is one thing that happened in the last year was the revamp of the logo and the brand image in general. And I think having a consistent vision around that also makes these kind of activities easier because then if we want to do like promotion and things like that, then we can leverage that to at least present a coherent message and a coherent image there. What else? Mike? No.
Well, I would say that when you look at CentOS historically, even before Stream, the way that we promoted our community was through events, through people getting together, and that's been harder for the past few years. But as the pandemic has started to recede, we're doing more and more of these, and I think it's feeling a little bit more like old times. It's nice to see people out.
And I think what's important and one thing that I'm pushing for is the fact that we are a joint community with Fedora. That's why we decided to join events for tomorrow night for dinner, because we need to get that interaction between the groups, because now CentOS is closer to Fedora. So having joint contributors is wonderful. Making sure that everyone's on the same page, because we share some systems now, is going to be vital for us. So I know there's a flock being planned. If we can get people there to talk to people, maybe give some talks there. So the more we can interact with our adjacent communities, the better. One other thing, there should not be an us and them So there's not CentOS and RHEL. We need to really start thinking of ourselves as all of us. And I think that's going to be important as well. The better we all work together, the better CentOS Stream will be, the more users we'll have, the more publicity. As Mike said, getting back in person, I think, is the greatest thing we can do, because all this interaction is vital. Hallway tracks. I mean, I don't care that the seats are empty right now because people are outside talking to each other. And as I tell people, when you go to a conference, if you can grab someone for 5 minutes in the hall, that is the most important thing you can do, is make that connection.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey, I think what I wanted to say is that Stream got part of the backlash of the EOL of 8, and Stream is not the problem, right? Stream is a great tool, a great solution, and we were discussing about it earlier. Stream is the reason why 9.0 was actually a usable distro, right? So I think that's one of the biggest selling points. You get to see things and you get to fix things. And now that the backlash of the whole EOL thing is starting to die, it's actually easier to show why Stream exists.
And to add to that, Pat on the side says that this is one of the things that he wants to advertise, is merge request to the code to fix something in RHEL, which is quite, to fix something in Stream that will become RHEL at a point. So I think this is one of the contributions that Pat wanted to show you all these merge requests he did.
And also keep in mind, Stream 8, there were a lot of processes that needed work that have been fixed for Stream 9, but yet people still remember that Stream 8 wasn't great. So now that we have Stream 9, we have better processes. Now is the time for everyone to talk about how great it is, because it is working. The processes work. You heard how the flow goes, today. So all those things are now in place where they weren't for 8.
One thing that I find amazing is the SIG work, for example, of the Camod SIGs, all the tool, all the new driver or old driver we can get. And I think this is one of where the community contributed an amount of work, amazing, to do all the automation and things. So yeah, good job.
Yeah, there is a wide ecosystem to leverage beyond CentOS Stream itself. I think one of the things we as a community need to do a better job of is making it easier for folks to understand what is the right place for the contribution or the kind of work they want to do. Sometimes it might be CentOS Stream proper, sometimes it might be a PEL, sometimes it might be Fedora, sometimes it might be a feature request to RHEL the product because that's what they actually want. And I think that's definitely an avenue where there's almost certainly a place for what you want to see happening in the project to happen and to have a good home. But there's a challenge in finding out exactly which it is if you're not familiar already with the ecosystem and with where everything is slotted in.
And while we may not actually get to writing docs on Monday, outlining and starting the onboarding process, like what do we need to see? What do we need to do? What do we need, how things go? Obviously, we may be in sigs.centos.org or we'll be on the main website, but how to become a contributor, how to add a new project, because we don't have that either. We've got conflicting information on the website on how to start a new SIG. So these are all things that now that it is easier to contribute, that we need to be working on, and we need volunteers to help us. It can't just be us.
Yeah, there's also a lot of paperwork in actually establishing a SIG that I think we can probably look at streamlining down the road.
Yeah, because I think we've got it now to just being an issue, but there's 2 different places that talk about different things. One is, oh, you make the issue, and another one has like all these do. So we're trying to streamline things. We're trying to make it easier for contributors, SIGs, and anyone who wants to join. Anyone got anything else?
Yeah, please.
Sure. No one else has a better question. So, because now we talked about CentOS Stream. Okay, that's part of CentOS, but so at least in my head, CentOS Stream is one of the things the CentOS community So it's not the only thing the community provides. What the community really provides are the SIGs in my head. So, and we by now have that we are allowed, the SIGs are allowed to build for stream and for non-stream. I just call it non-stream now, whatever exactly it is. So should we more engage in that way or promote even more that to all the SIGs? Because I think some SIGs actually don't even know that they can also target RHEL. So should we more engage in that way and promote that more? Because if I saw it correctly, even in the Rocky Linux talk, there was like, they currently have some SIGs, but they actually want to encourage them to get back to CentOS, so that CentOS at some point is actually the, where you get all the SIGs together. So that at some point, is that some vision that you would share, or you see it differently?
I mean, that's part of why we need better onboarding docs. We are working on streamlining processes so that it will be easier for the SIGs all to have a vision and also to bring stuff in from the outside.
I think this is something that we should prominently feature in the SIG guide, so that folk. I agree with you that likely these things specifically, but also other things, aren't necessarily something that every SIG is aware of, and is something we need to do a better job at documenting and also making people aware, posting more often on the Vel, or having better communication channels so that there's better awareness when there's changes or new tools, new opportunities available for existing SIGs. Absolutely. Hello. Sorry. No, please.
You asked something about the Rocky Linux and the SIGs. One of the continuous discussions is that if it's something that is gonna affect the whole community, it shouldn't be within Rocky or Alma or whatever. It should be within the CentOS umbrella, because everybody should benefit from it. If you're gonna create a SIG to create live CDs, it makes sense for it to be downstream. But if it's something that is gonna contribute to everybody, it should be within CentOS 6 umbrella.
I would say that even for creating live CDs, there is an alt images SIG. Yeah. So ideally, for that example, what I would like to see is having the tooling handled at the CentOS level within the SIG, and then downstream projects can leverage this tooling to do what they want with it and build their own images with their own spin on it. But in general, yeah, I think as much as possible, we should try to have things contributed upstream to the project and handled within the project, to avoid duplication of work and to make everybody's life easier.
Yeah, all SIG are doing an amazing job. So I think if they decide to build for other distro in the ecosystem, it's a plus and it's great. But as well, it needs to be discussed with, do you have time to do everything or not? After it's a decision at the SIG where we are not included. But if you want to, I think all the tools have been put in place a few months ago to build against RHEL build routes. We have no issue against that, and there's no problem if you want to do it in your SIG.
Since we were kind of on the topic of the downstreams and negativity and stuff a minute ago, something that everybody could keep in mind in a way that Stream helps everybody is that if it wasn't for Stream, EPEL wouldn't be so usable right out the gate when a new RHEL release comes out like it was with 9. And I mean, I don't know hardly anybody that runs, RHEL or a downstream that doesn't use EPEL.
Yeah, it was a massive help with the bootstrap.
Yeah, it's just a big positive. So to remind the negative people, look, Stream's helping you.
So let's give a shout out to Troy and Carl.
Yeah, definitely.
It was same for me experience. I could start to use basically RHEL 9 in January last year, 6 months before it was released, because Stream was able to back check X11 version, check everything. So for us as well, for my personal opinion, it was super helpful. And as you say, I could ping everybody in EPEL to rebuild package that I was missing, and think as soon as RHEL was released, then you could work. So in terms of process, it made me win 6 months in the whole thing, because I knew what was coming. And I think this is where the power of Stream, it's really useful for my job.
So we need to get a CERN talk out there because everyone loves CERN talks.
Oh, yeah.
I know on the OpenStack side, we love CERN talks. Anyone else have anything? We can also hang out outside and do something like just a meet and greet versus us standing up here and answering questions too.
Is there beer outside?
Beer.
Or beverage of choice?
I'm sorry, I'll hook up after beers
Well,
for
we've got the
next
dinner
time.
tomorrow night
That is
too.
true.
So. Anything from our group?
High praise for the K-Mod SIG from Pat.
Yeah.
I guess I
Yeah,
want to.
please.
My thought on Stream is I tend to draw a parallel to the early days of Fedora because I don't know who here remembers the very early days of Fedora when Fedora was built inside of Red Hat and community members could not contribute to it except through extras, except through what was the equivalent of, I guess, EPEL for Fedora. And now with Stream, we're kind of taking RHEL in that step where we can have community members participate in RHEL development. I mean, I know I'm explaining Stream here, but obviously it's a challenging problem. It's a big change for everybody to absorb. And I think, just like in the early days of Fedora, it took literally years to work this out and figure out how the process would work and for us to sort of grow into the new shoes. And I think with Stream, we're going to have some of the same growing pains and hopefully faster because we've been there before. And it already is, I mean, but I'm really excited to see how this matures.
All right, going once. See, I'm an auctioneer up here. Pablo, you got something else? Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Everyone, thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
Let's also give Sean a big
Thank you.
clap and Tigger back there and Jonathan who were here till 2 a.m. setting up the camera system and the sound.
Yeah. Also, I think they're not in here, but Dorka and Lenka, who ran the registration all day today, and they also, yeah, they run DevConf CZ in Brno, so that's in June. So you can come
Oh, yeah.
see them put on
and
a
the
show.
CFP is open.
Yeah, there you go.
So put your stream talks in.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And open source.
Oh. Got me.
And Open Source Summit North America, the call for papers is open until Sunday, I believe.
Sunday.
So let's get those stream talks in. All right, thank y'all.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. This worked out. No, not at all. Thank you.
Turn it off, but that's all right.
Everybody understands what they call it. Yeah.